Testing 1, 2, 3.
What? I just stand in this house? Yeah, I have to sit it.
Just give us a thumbs up, guys, if you can hear. Appreciate that. Thanks, Tino. Good man. Yeah, I had a off-topic story, but I had a phone I've had for less than 5 months, a Xiaomi phone, and the back expanded on it at the weekend. The thing like bloated. It was the battery. I couldn't figure it out until I noticed in my hand. So I replaced it with a new phone, and I've been setting it up for a day. As always, there's no real format to the VC. The format is that we talk about most things in our own way and on our own time, and obviously no shilling or etc. We've had a pretty interesting week. I think the macro background is beginning to line up, and just from my own perspective, we really do focus on short term, but I think that's a psychological aspect to this journey. I do it myself, and I catch myself, and I just try and remember the bigger picture about why we're here, and our expectations, and the achievements that have been made on this chain in general. So I'm very, very focused and interested in the macro, the regulatory side of things, and seeing this play out sometime, hopefully later in the year. A lot of people are citing 4th of July, etc. But you might see something happen slightly beforehand, and I think the political environment may dictate that a little sooner. I wouldn't expect, personally, I'm not expecting to see anything until long after July, but just to see the wheels turn. Let's see the wheels turn, and see what happens with clarity. It's very exciting in general. The distribution aspect has again been quite interesting this week. It's some data I shared with Nine and Dr. Pegger, and we saw a lot of new addresses join in cohorts that you wouldn't see unless you were looking. I'll just I'll read some of that back, actually, because I find it very interesting where this is headed. So between the 18th and yesterday, the 1 to 5 million cohort added 133 addresses and lost 57, and that was a net of 76 addresses gained. You'd expect to see that, like that's what I've been seeing for several months, that pattern. It's always the churn is always in that smaller cohort. The 5 to 10 million cohort weakened overall, and I didn't expect to see that. And a lot of the addresses were either no longer present in the May 25th holder file or just moved into the adjacent cohorts. So the 10 to 15 million cohort is where things stood out far more than usual. And it finished up adding 10 addresses, but that came from 22 addresses entering and 12 leaving. And what stood out from that in itself was that 16 of those addresses weren't present in the May the 18th holder file, which I found really unusual. The 15 to 20 million cohort strengthened because some addresses came down into it from 20 to 30 million and a few up into it from below. I think I just mentioned that actually. And the 20 to 30 million cohort weakened mostly because addresses moved down into 15 to 20 million. Yeah, that's correct. So it's this, we're getting back to this shuffling the deck angle. And there's been, for the last month, a lot of movement in the higher cohorts, which just that pattern hadn't been there for a long time until now. So that's just something I've been seeing. And where supposedly 80+% of the total supply of DAI is rumored to be owned by pioneers. The metric is really hard to it's really hard to tie it back to just regular holders like ourselves. So I'm just less inclined to be posting it as so with such frequency. So I just reconsidered that, and I'm tracking it. I'm tracking it all the time, but I'll be posting it a little less frequently, unless there's some event which would, like some huge sell or exploit or something like that. That's what I've been up to.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome.
Tino, how are you?
Yeah.
I hope you caught,
I'm well, thanks. Yeah, no, thank you for that. It was good to know sort of what's going on and whether if there's any sort of movements which seem to be quite interesting. Yeah, like I've been sort of digging into sort of obviously having to wait for this whole bull market to play out, and takes a long time and so forth. I started like using AI to like essentially self-soothe myself and sort of like there are a bunch of self-help books I've read recently, and I started to test AI as to whether they understood the concepts of those books, and I found that they were quite helpful and stuff. So I started looking at things like reality transurfing and the book The Game of Life and things like that. And something interesting I sort of discovered, which is really strange, but it kind of lined up with what I had. The explanation was quite cogent in the sense that that a lot of people, including myself, we bought crypto because we basically wanted to escape the matrix and so forth. Like, the tyranny of the government, the tyranny of your wage cage, the tyranny of whatever. And I discovered from some of these books and with the help of AI that if you're investing and this is what they told me, and I'm not, I wouldn't necessarily say this is the gospel truth, as a sort of a disclaimer, but I found that if you invest, I learned that for myself. If you invest because you're looking to run away or you're looking to battle the tyranny, what happens is subconsciously, what will happen is that that will reflect onto you. And basically, for example, you're saying, I want to buy PDI or any investment because I don't like my boss and I don't like the government debasing my currency. So what happens is, according to the book, the universe reflects that on you by giving you a government manipulated minus 90% on your bags, and you're like, oh, okay, right. It's not because they wanted to and they target you specifically, but it's simply a reflection of what your subconscious is thinking, which is, I have to fight, I have to, I don't have enough. And then I looked into why it's taking so long to pump. And I said, you know what, 90%, 99% times 2, you know what, I can hold through anything. I can hold through whatever pain and misery I'm going to endure, I can endure it. And then I was guided to a conclusion that if you approach your investing in the position of fighting and holding through pain and suffering, the universe will continue to give you minus 90%, etc., over a long period of time, because you're emanating a position of fighting and struggling. So I looked at that and went, okay, well, how do I sort of change the way I think? And I think I posted a few articles or a few little paragraphs that I had gotten, and basically they said that the AI essentially told me, applying the principles of these books I read, were that you invest to cement your financial future. You're already safe and stable and protected, and you're investing to expand, not to fight or to run or to fortress up. And in terms of the pain and in terms of having to hold through 90% drawdowns over an extended period of time, being underwater for an extended period of time, instead of thinking of it in terms of, I'm holding 90% because I need to prove that I can hold my minus 90%, I can fight through stuff which people would capitulate around me left, right, and center. You say that I hold through the minus 90%, because I can discipline myself to receive the blessing which happens afterwards. And all I'm doing is I'm simply navigating what is basically bad weather in the financial sort of sphere. And I found it. I'm like, yeah, I hope this is all true. Maybe not, but it certainly helps me sort of cope with going through, this sort of period in time. And I think I posted these examples in the chat a day ago or something like that. They're quite chunky paragraphs, so you could probably search and find them. But I thought I found that stuff quite useful, to me at least. So hopefully it might be useful to others. The books I used were Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland and The Game of Life by Florence Scovel Shinn. And I think those two are pretty good books to read in general anyway, while you're waiting for everything to like wrap together again. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
That's a great 2 cents. And what any reasonable thinking person should take from that is that you are proactive about managing expectations rather than leaning into the what would it be like shared sentiment without. If you're in a group of people and you may fall foul of the echo chamber aspect, and people start believing things they haven't researched themselves or verified for themselves, you can find yourself in a real tricky frame of mind, and it can last for months. If you are talking to people, like having conversations just like we're having, which is I think was a big part of starting these VCs in the first place. If we're talking, we're learning. But if we're just leaning into each other's, I think you mentioned the misery of waiting, the hardship of waiting. If you just lean into all the nouns that go with that, then you'll start to think like that, and you'll be less inclined to do due diligence on claims that have been made. And even if you're talking to an AI and not a person, AI can be incredibly useful. It's a darn sight more useful than it was 2 years ago. So I think we're at a point where
that the ship that you mentioned, I think the people on board it now are the ones. I think they're the ones that will make it. We've lost many, many, many people along the way, and that's just going back to the tables again. You can see it. A lot of that noise that people lean into was in that 1 to 5 million cohort where I feel there's all the trading activity exists. People are more inclined to gamble with small amounts, and that's generally where the small amounts are. So, yeah, great study, good story.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. Yeah, I guess the ultimate takeaway, the TLDR takeaway for anyone who's sort of joined now is essentially, I think we need to condition ourselves into giving ourselves assurance that no matter what happens with PDAI or any Richard Hart coins or any sort of coins at all, or any sort of investments that you go through, crypto or otherwise, um, is that everything's taken care of and the universe is on our side, and that things will work out no matter what sort of the result is, whether a PDI pegs or it only goes up to 10 cents or it goes to zero or whatever. Like, things will work out. You just have to allow it to work out and not get in your own way. That's probably the ultimate takeaway of it and stuff. And of course, having a clearer mind does help a lot in terms of actually thinking through things clearly. And like, instead of just concentrating on the pain, you concentrate on the fact that there's been all this activity and this activity is not coincidental, or the probability of it being coincidental is so low that there's more faith in thinking that it's not coincidental than it is. And basically, and looking at the objective facts about how consumer sentiment is still low and how everyone's positioned for everything to go to zero, which is naturally a good thing to do and so forth. It helps do that, but I think ultimately, whatever happens, we're all taken care of and things will work out as long as we let it work out and we don't narrow our minds into either forcing something to work out or thinking that nothing will work out, basically. Yeah.
So, really listening to that. It's nice to hear people talk from their the soulful angles about expectation, universal law, and I enjoy that. That's my way of thinking. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel I feel a lot happier in this than not a part of it. You look at you can just spend an hour looking at the lizard media about the way financial markets work and the politics, the internal politics works around regulation and the delays, and the obfuscation that's gone with it for the past, well, since mainnet, I really started paying attention to it. But I'd much rather be here and taking risk and waiting on some. I don't even know what opportunity would exist on the other side. I'm much happier here.
I honestly reckon that PDI is probably one of the least hopium communities in PulseChain. Like, there's actual facts and evidence and stuff backing up the claims. It's not just, oh, Richard, please pump my bags. Yeah.
There's a lot of we many people tend to focus on small events and turn them into something that's that they're not, or things don't play out. There's a lot of that. But when you add them all together, all these little pieces, there's actually little elements of truth and findings. If you put them together, which I've watched Dr. Began do it rather well. He takes aspects of many posts, and I think he uses Claude. He uses it rather well. And I see a lot of those stories that didn't quite play out as expected furnish into something sort of tangible, mindfully, and they start to make better sense. The basics, it's still the basics that ring true for me. We have team to place it outside of the jurisdiction of a regulatory giant like the SEC. And I think that is just the most remarkable aspect to all of this. If that's the foundation of everything, then surely it's room to let flourish the assets on the chain. I'm not interested, like personally, I'm not interested in meme coins or anything like that. But it does give, it arguably gives a greater opportunity to all those things on the chain as well. And just look at what's going on with every other chain out there. They've not had a good run of things. It's like every couple of weeks there's some event taking place on the chain. There's nothing negative happening regards security and exploits happening at foundation level on this chain. It inspires a lot of confidence just at the basics. And then a lot of the assessment is like extremely technical, and it takes, I think it takes the average person about a week to get their head around it. And even then, you've got to stay up to speed. And by the time you've gotten up to speed and you think you understand it, a new assessment arrives with a slightly different take, or it alters from time to time. And I think for me, it puts me off pursuing or taking. I used to take at sort of face value a lot of the assessment, and I put the time in, and then you feel a bit aggrieved because you put the time in, it doesn't play out like you think it will. So I just lean in. I just lean into basics, and the longer we go without upset, the stronger things look. And I think that's more and more that's becoming like a benchmark for this chain. I hope all of that makes sense. I'm kind of speaking off the cuff, but yeah.
Makes perfect sense to me, Osprey. I just thought to say hello to everyone.
Hey man, how's it going?
I'm good, mate. I'm really good. I've just hearing both what you and Tenor Sands were saying. I really like what you said about the research, because Claude is my primary usage, by the way. I find it's far superior to ChatGPT and other AI models that are out there. There's a couple of good ones, but that's the main one that I use purely because of the UI. I love the UI. I love the UI and the UX, and I love the fact that it's so connected to code. So if you want to code anything, you can just literally just ask it instantly, and it'll instantly develop something for you. I love that. I love that. It's just like from theory to product. Like there's no delay. And for visual learners, it's amazing because you can actually like input loads of information and then it'll come back with a visual for you. So you can it compounds your own learning journey, which is amazing. But as you said, sometimes 3 days in crypto is like just feels like 3 months in IRL. You know, like if you're in any job, any place, if you're on the stock market floor, if you're a shareholder in a company, any sort of IRL thing, that speed, that 3 months of change just happens in 3 days. Because, and I'm not talking about price action, I'm talking about actual like research. I've just had a long bank holiday with the family, sort of hit the beach and chilled out and just I got sunburnt bad as well, which is a pain in the ass, but that's a whole nother subject. So I'm walking around like a red lobster. But yeah, I had 3 days off. Like literally, it was only the weekend and yesterday, and already I fell behind. I've got a couple of friends who are sort of heavy in research. Michael Shaw being one of them, especially on the 1967 stuff. And dude, I've completely fell behind. Like I honestly, I'm getting FOMO because of how much is being like has been discovered. Like, if you're not sort of into that kind of thing, it might not be. You don't have to catch every horse in the race, but if you're into that kind of stuff, there's an endless amount of stuff that you can be researching and looking into. And if you're into that and you enjoy it, then it's like there's so much there. But I liked what you said about not attaching yourself to an outcome. I think where people get hurt is they're not independent, so they're more outcome dependent. So they believe that, oh well, the more research I do, that will or the more I look into something, that should equate to more money on the other side, or my expectations can rise now. But that's a human fallacy. It's misweighting really, because you're you're basically viewing crypto like you view your 9 to 5. Oh well, I do 2 hours of work, so I get 2 hours of money. Great, input output. But it doesn't work like that in crypto. It might be that crypto is the highest paid job that you could ever do in your life, but you've got to wait 5 years for the payday, and the payday is disproportionately massive compared to anything you've ever done in your life. Because there's only two people, as Richard always says, that get paid in crypto: holders and founders. That's it. Everything else is bullshit. Trading is bullshit. People get liquidated every day. Sometimes they drop 99%, and they drop 99%, and they drop 99% again, and people are still gambling on that third 99% and lose 20 million. We're talking about the FTX and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's just so much opportunity. But here's the thing: most people can't survive the sideways. You get eaten up, you get rinsed on the sideways, right? Because you're battling with a few things. You're not really battling with the market. You're battling with the expectation that you have of the market. So if you're thinking, oh, I can put in 10K or something as an example, and I can make 100, I can make 1 million. You're thinking, oh, 100x. But you might think, oh, I can do that in like 1 year. But then the 1 year comes around and it hasn't done the 100x. And immediately you're still anchored to that expectation. So even if it takes 2 years later, you're still looking back at the first expectation that you had, feeling disappointed. Instead of thinking, well, I don't really know when it's going to happen, but I believe that it will happen. And then think, well, let me be more reasonable. Let's say worst case scenario, it takes 10 years. I know that's kind of wild, because you think, well, the altcoin that I've invested in is not going to survive 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a fair argument. But we're not in any normal altcoin. We're in a Richard Hart ecosystem. We're attached to a horse who believes categorically that he's going to win and beat all of crypto. It's a different kind of animal. If you think, oh, 10 years and you get paid $1 million, you've been paid 100K a year, regardless of how you feel. You have been on 100 grand a year. That's 8 grand a month, 8.3K a month, and you get paid it. It's like back pay. You get paid it in 10 years. So that's the sort of expectation model that you're looking at. Suddenly things look a lot more optimistic. But it does come back to what Tenor and you were saying, Osprey. It's kind of the doomer versus optimist sort of framing, the argument, everything's shit, nobody cares, versus that everything's great, nobody cares. Like, nobody cares either way. It's kind of the nobody cares or the nobody cares. Great, I can do what I want now. That kind of argument. So there's a lot of framing. I just think expectations, it's just, I think they call it the comparison is the thief of joy. Well, expectations just crushes your dreams because you're trying to expedite what you want on a timeline, but you don't actually know what the timeline is. You know, if Richard Hart thinks in his head, I'm going to take 15 years, but I'm going to be the biggest man in crypto and I'm going to dominate everything. Privacy, wallet, ZK, ZK proofs, bridges, private, every aspect that is the true cypherpunk dream, then you might be on the wrong timeline. You're anchoring yourself to your own timeline because of your own needs, because of your own life. But you got to understand that the guy who's running the chain, the billionaire, his timeline's different to ours. So you kind of have to almost flip it in your head and think, well, I'm going to win when Richard's going to win. Because it's not the horse before the cart, right? We're the cart, he's the horse. Us trying to get in front of him is like, you're not going to be able to front run the market. You've got to wait for him to have his win. So yeah, that's just some thoughts that I was having.
Good thoughts.
So bullish, just come off a load of Richard Hart videos this morning, and it just puts you in a different headspace.
I like seeing all the failures around this chain. I like seeing all the failures elsewhere. It's like it just compounds exactly why we're here. I keep seeing that. What am I seeing about Cardano today?
Yeah, big time.
You know what I mean?
Everything just exploding around you, and you're like, oh, ironic in a way, because everybody was saying that we were going to explode, and we've never exploded. Everything else is up in flames. It's kind of nice because things are breaking, things are breaking around us.
Yeah,
it is player versus player. There's no getting away from that. It's markets at the end of the day.
Yeah. There's the more like good news is great. Bad news is awesome. You know what I mean? Bad news is it's good. It's ironically excellent in this space, and the more that we see, and we keep seeing it, these hackers are getting smarter, and the people that I think, is there an argument to say that the people that are paid to do jobs just aren't putting the same effort in, or there's a big rush, a desperation to get things done and get things moving because the pressure is out there, because the the macro environment just doesn't yet fully favor. And I don't know, it's like in the real world, the goods and services just are not they're not where they should be, because people have suffered so much economically over the past sort of 10 years. Certainly post-lockdown, things have changed massively. And I think communication has suffered, even though we've got these fantastic means to communicate like we are now, but there's nothing like real communication. I think it's just something I see in day-to-day life. And I just wonder how far that extends into the digital world, and everywhere else is suffering, except PulseChain seems just to be so magnified through the failings of other chains, and I find it like an extremely good. It's like we don't have to pay for that, That's like marketing that no one can ignore, because it's negative news, and by extension, it shines a light gratis for or on PulseChain.
Yeah. Well, 100% flawless operation is not cool when everybody's winning, but it gets cooler and cooler and cooler when everyone starts losing. And then people start realizing, oh, actually, I've misweighted my own value proposition. Like I thought that what was really cool was green candles. It's like, yeah, but even scams get green candles. Like you're misweighting the operation, like you're misweighting the value allocation. I think I saw Somi say it in PulseChain's video yesterday. People who are buying Hex and eHex now, you're at a 200x at all time high.
Yeah.
250, sorry. So it's like, dude, you're never going to get that opportunity anywhere. Like, where can you ever put $1,000 into something and it almost be a sure thing if you're patient enough?
Mm.
You know, it's just unbelievable. Like, but here's the thing, Osprey. I'm also aware that there's a level of us knowing too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I experienced it. I think it was yesterday, and this morning. I was talking to a friend about this, and I was talking about Pulse Chain, and the person I was talking to just wasn't getting it. They just weren't getting it. Like from the outset, I was like, it was almost frustrating because I was like, look, dude, you don't have to understand it. I've already put the hours in. I've already understood it. You're blind because you don't know the information. I mean, you know, I said it respectfully, but the truth of the matter is, he is blind because he doesn't know what I know. And for me to just transfer that value, I can't transfer that value to him instantly because I've already done the 10,000 hours. I think we all have, because we've all knuckled down and actually stuck around and put in the hours and still and checked in on the Telegram and all that sort of stuff. And the kind of 10,000, you know, sort of law of mastery, so to speak. It's just kind of like, you're not going to get that if you come into the space after 2 hours. You know, it was kind of like, oh, okay, so how do I get set up from start to finish? And I'm like thinking, oh my God, there's so much to tell you. Like, how do you even explain the fact that this is a decentralized exchange and it's not illegal, it's legal, but it's operating in a place where you kind of have to buy some Ethereum on MetaMask and have a hardware wallet, or a different internet money wallet, you know, internet money or ZK wallet, and you kind of got to onboard it, and you've got to get a card that allows you to buy crypto. And it's like, it's just there's just so much to explain. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, and by the way, you have to write it down on a piece of paper, and you have to keep that piece of paper safe, and you probably need a 25th password. What do you mean 25th password? Oh, well, can I set the password? No, you can't set it. They set it. It's 24. It's auto-generated. You set the 25th. Okay, cool. But what if I forget it? Well, you lose it forever. What? There's no customer service. No, there's no customer service. Anyone saying that there's customer service is probably a scam. It's just like, try and explain this to normies is like, it's just such a barrier. But we've done all that. We've done all the basics. We've gone past the security. We've, you know, shout out, you know, to respectfully to Charlie. You know, some people still experience hacks and still get scammed, and even that's an issue. But what I'm saying is, you know, you still have all of that to get past. You go so down the deep down the rabbit hole. You finally find something that's actually like almost unbeatable in terms of, like, not in price because everything's down, but in technology, which is Pulse Chain. And try and explain that to someone, to explain like, no, Solana is actually dog shit, but everybody loves it because it's a really well-known marketed token project. Like, you know, I was trying to tell my friend like back in 2022, Solana is dog shit. And then I ended up obviously looking like the chump because it's the one that did really well, one of the ones that did really well, but it's still trash. But it's like, I don't think Pulse Chain has been valued accurately for the technology. You know, it's that kind of, I'm in it for the tech. Well, the truth is, we are actually in it for the tech and the money, because Pulse Chain wins on the tech, and it will win on the money when the tech is truly valued. Like, it needs to. Everybody's kind of misweighting. You know, we had the pump fun era. You know, and who did they go to? They went to Solana. I understand it. I didn't like it, but the market doesn't care how I feel. The market doesn't care how anybody feels. The market just does what the market wants to do. You know, some people don't like NFTs in 2021, and they made a lot of money on pictures of apes, Bored Ape Yacht Club. But, you know, did I think it was trash? Yeah, but the market didn't. So it doesn't matter what I think. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what any of us think. But hopefully, the narrative coming is the privacy, the ZK, you know, the flawless operation, all the self sovereignty, all the sort of stuff that we love about Pulse Chain. It will get its day in the sun, whether it's this cycle coming or it's next cycle. And I hate saying that because people get emotional and they say next cycle, and it makes me sick to the stomach because I'm like, oh, I can't do another 5-6 years. But if the payday is big enough, I can do it. You can do anything. The game is, you don't know when it's going to arrive, though, right?
You get rich holding, and I think you can get rich holding on the chain with the best name going. I think I said this one time before, but it only really dawned on me a couple of months ago. I was working on some graphics or something, and I saw the name Pulse Chain, and it really hit me. It is the most human name you could possibly have in this space. It encompasses everybody on the planet. Everyone alive has a pulse, and it's the most human thing. And I think you look at it compared to the name of every other chain, it with its the flawless operation point is one thing, is a very, very strong point. And I think the name combined, it cannot fail. It just cannot fail. It's the perfect couple of instances. And to have a name like that is, everyone can relate to it, it is the most relatable thing. It sounds human. It sounds like it's for everybody, and such a great name.
When you're saying about all this makes me think of something interesting, and especially the comments about how markets don't care how you feel and so forth, and Pulse Chain's undervalued. Do you know what is music to my ears? Is when people say, I do not want to invest in Pulse Chain purely because I hate Richard Hart and he's a scammer. When I hear that, I'm like, oh, I'm so early. Oh, I feel so good. Oh, I'm so glad you're sidelined. But on the other hand, if these weak hands, these guys who used to say that Pulse Chain, I don't want to invest into Pulse Chain because I hate Richard Hart, and then they go in and they start talking about, and those guys start talking about and saying, oh, the tech is perfect, this is the greatest chain known to mankind, it's like divinely inspired, etc. When they start saying that, then it will be like, okay, it's time to sell.
That's a good, that'll be
Yeah. I mean, when Beirut starts getting excited about Richard Hart again, you start thinking, fucking hell, I need to start taking profit. There's a few people as well, like, there's a few people that, especially these Bitcoin maxis, if you get, everyone's got a price. Everyone's got a price, whatever way you look at it. Everyone's got a level when they batten down the hatches and admit that they're wrong, overtly or covertly, or even if it's just to themselves, where they say, okay, we're 10x above SAC now, maybe I got it wrong. And like you say, it just compounds. I mean, you've got to look at it. Tanner, you made such a good point. When you touch on the culture, it's just you can't really, I think, as we all know, without the culture, without the community, you don't really have a chain. We talk about this every week, really, and it is, but I don't think, no matter how much we talk about it, it still doesn't change the fact that we are super blessed in that sense. Like we do have the best community in crypto, purely because, and I can prove it, because the amount of people that are still here and the amount of people that are still talking about Pulse Chain, despite the price, tells you enough about the community. Because most people quit. Most people quit at 99%. Most people quit at 60%. They just check out, especially passive investors, people like friends of friends or people who aren't really in crypto. They put a couple of grand in, drops to 1,000. They think, oh, this is bollocks. Forget about it, right? They just think, oh, whatever, I don't care. I'm going to carry on my life. Then you get the other people who actually sell and quit, but they quit at like 80% or 90% because they need the money. They wanted the money faster. All that sort of stuff, all those weak hands, all the people that sacked for the PLS and the PLSX at the top of the last market, whether it was in May or November 2021, that kind of level, those kind of periods, because we had them running over a couple of months, didn't we? But those people who were quote unquote trapped, a lot of them are no longer trapped because they've already exited. So they've just wrote it off already. And somebody made another good point yesterday. He makes so many good points in his videos in general. But one of them that stuck out to me yesterday when I watched it. Sorry, today, but he recorded it yesterday. It was his live stream, his Pulse Chain ecosystem live stream. One thing he said was, once you're to the power of the upside is like the resistance is so low because of how many people have sold. Like the more people that sell at these levels, the easier it is for people like you and I to enjoy those gains to the upside, because you don't have that sell pressure. Like, imagine if everybody who wanted to sell in terms of the short term is selling now. All that's left is people who want big money. So where none of us are going to be selling to each other, because we're going to be wanting to hold. So we're waiting. We want the 100x, right? We want the big money. We want the 10x above SAC level. Like from here, I'm on about, like from where we are right now.
Yep.
So who are we selling to? Do you see my point? The logic is, who are you going to pass the bag to when everybody around you wants to hold on?
Yep.
There is truth in that, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, I just think the low. That's why I was saying to what you were saying. What I love that you said earlier, Osprey, is, you know, it is a good thing when we're being continuing to be sold, because if we can make another all-time low, I'm just going to buy more.
Yep. I
You know,
see it
this
in
is not. I love it.
the distribution backs up what you're saying completely, and more so the past couple of months. I find it unusual. I find the activity unusual
Yeah.
because the group is small. Right, no matter what people say, it's a very, very small group that pay no attention to the membership count. It's a false metric, grossly so.
Yeah.
But the number of people online equates somewhere quite handy to the amount of people that are holding and a member of that channel. And the number of sales taking place in that 1 to 5 million cohort, or trading, I think it is trading, because I looked at a lot of addresses. I actually did a study of 20 addresses, and I watched, and I've just through my own learning over the past sort of, I don't know, year, when I've been paying more attention to how to watch addresses and like you guys and watch them move, I could ascertain that they have been trading. But the noise in chat doesn't equate to the numbers, where ordinarily it would. There'd be a lot of, if people are trading, it's usually on either on bad news or good news. And in between, I can never quite ascertain it in between, but on the good news and bad news, I can correlate. And it doesn't quite add up like it used to. It seems to me that it feels to me, that could be my hope side of things, but the logic would tell me that someone is moving funds in order to distribute and to obfuscate. It's been like that for quite some time. Post-March, we had post-March last, we had a huge wave of energy through every cohort. You couldn't get a great read of it, other than that people were panicked, but it also would have been a great opportunity for pioneers, in quotes, to move some things around, create some new wallets, etc. But all of a sudden, I'm seeing now that these new addresses that weren't in previous files are appearing weekly, and in cohorts that some people would be like very, very pleased to be a part of those cohorts. So where is that coming from is my next little mission. So I'm going to spend the next few days looking at some wallets on my own time, and I would encourage anybody to do the same.
Massively.
It's easily done yourself. Like I tell you what, Doc, I harp on, right, and I know what I'm seeing when I see it, but my way of explaining things is nowhere near as proficient as yours. I notice when I kind of go around the houses, and then you can summarize in a couple of sentences what I had took a paragraph to say. It's brilliant. So I'm glad for these recordings, because I can go back and I can teach myself through some of the stuff you say. But I would encourage people to grab the data for themselves. I think we explained that on the last VC. It's easily done with a page scraper, and you just go into the DAI holders list and set it up to scan every page. And then you can bring it into Google Sheets or drop it into Grok or Claude, and you can get a really, really rather clever assessment of what's taking place week to week, and it builds a picture. And it does support what you say. I feel like, and as Tenor said at the start about the ship, I think the people on the ship I think we're the ones who are going to make it. We're not going to be sending our bags to each other.
No, 100%.
For those people who are not as proficient in on-chain analysis, i.e. me, the main thing that gave me conviction, even without knowing all the fancy cool stuff that everyone else seems to know, is how on earth do you get 10 red monthly candles on PulseChain and get 3 at the same time, get 3 monthly green candles on PDAI? That alone is, even without the on-chain analysis, it makes you think, well, something's happening, it seems, which I found was quite, well, it certainly increased my conviction and so forth. And the other point which I thought maybe it's as useful is, I remember there was a comment about how, when the further we go down, the more upside there is for people who are believers, and that is certainly true. What is also interesting also is that the further you go down, the more coins you have to sell to get the same number of US dollars or fiat currency back. So when the lower it goes, it means that the cheaters are punished harder and harder to cheat out of their bags, which means that they're going to basically punish us less on the way up, because they've had to clear more of their supply to get the US dollars out of the liquidity pool. So fine, if you're a believer, you want the price to go down because you can buy more, and B, the cheaters will punish you less as you go down because they have to sell exponentially more coins to get the fiat out of the pool.
Big time Tenor. And that's the compound effect, right? Because they actually get punished 3 ways. One of them is kind of a double-edged sword, but basically they get punished, as you said, on the way down because they're selling and selling and selling, so they're getting a worse cost basis than what they entered at, so they're selling at a loss. But then they get punished on the way back up because they get either opportunity cost because they stay sidelined and they say nah and they count it out and they watch the green candle move up against them because they're not in the game, or they chase the candle and then they FOMO back in and then they become our sell pressure, like our exit liquidity later. So it's like either way they're getting slammed. That's why Jeets get punished the hardest in this game, because you're getting slammed from both sides because you're quitting early, and then if you only feel good when you're sidelined and you know that you've made the right bet. So they think they've made the right decision on the way down. That's the only reason. That's the only way bears win, right? The only way that they win is if they make the right decision on the way down. But they don't anticipate themselves being wrong, and then they chase the other side. It's like that's the mid curve. That's the whole mid curve analogy, right? Have you been on one far side of the equation of I'm a dum dum, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm just gonna like eeny meeny miny mo Dogecoin, boom. And then you've got the mid curvers who are a bit like kind of the 120 IQ guys, as Richard would sort of say, like the people who are kind of in the middle. They're not dumb, they're not uber genius, they're just kind of in the middle. And then you get the genius guys on the other side of the curve. So it's like the retards and the geniuses get all the money. All the mid curvers, they're the ones that are full of self doubt, even when they know it's a good bet. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like the dietards make the most money because whether you're whether you're you just don't know what the hell's going on and you're a self-confessed dietard, or whether you're a genius, you're going to fall into one of those categories. but all the mid carvers get punished because all the mid carvers are the Jeets and the FOMOers. It's the same personality type over long enough. If you take a pure data set, and that's why data is so great and so indicative of psychology in markets. And this is why I think Osprey spends so much time on that data set, because it gives you such an accurate picture of who's doing what and what's actually happening on chain. And that's why the chain is superior, because it doesn't matter what people are saying, it matters what they're doing. It's the same way Warren Buffett is fudding Bitcoin, but we don't know he's buying it. A better example is JP Morgan, right? Jamie Dimon, the same way he was fudding Bitcoin and he was buying it on the quiet. It doesn't matter what people are saying or how people are feeling, it's what they're actually doing. And the Jeets are going to get punished the hardest. They get punished 3 different ways. Because either way, imagine this, right? Imagine you sell the bottom and it does 1000x. That, to me, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, that's more destroying than watching the chain fail. For me, everyone's different, but watching someone else, like thinking about the what if I wasn't a coward? What if I just held on a little bit longer? What if I just sent it to what if I just didn't sell my bags? What if I just left it and I didn't get emotional? What about if I just went and got a second job, or I tried a little bit harder, or I just didn't give up? Do you know what I'm saying? Because that's more painful, in my opinion, and that's why people chase the top, because they don't want that. They want to, like, it's damage control, right? If you do the first 10x, you're thinking, oh shit, I can't miss the next 10x. That's 100x. Oh, I can't miss the next 10x. That's 1000x. Oh, I've got to get in.
Poor Jeets.
Poor Jeets. Poor Jeets, little ospreys.
Punish all Jeets.
So, you know,
Jesus, someone who you'll never be.
whoa, we're getting the woe me's from the Osprey clan. Do you know what,
It's lovely to be able to be
Oscar,
outside and do a VC.
bro, it's so nice. And I was just about to say, I'm so glad you're recording this, because please, can we turn that into like keywords in the chat, like I can't believe I sold, or I wish I didn't sell.
That's
So
what
it
we'll
just
do, yeah.
just plays
I'll,
that poor cheats.
I'll clip it. They say punish all Jeets.
Yeah, like, I can't believe I doubted Richard Hart.
It
Why
would
did
work,
I?
wouldn't it?
Why did I cheat?
You save that for when we are going to Euphoria to solicit the exit liquidity.
Yeah. Well, it'll be slow mode, I imagine.
Yeah, I'll put some effects on it, I think.
That's the thing. I mean, for those of us that have been around since 2021 and prior, I mean, we can all remember, right, the chats on Telegram. There's nothing like it. You know, slow mode was like a thing that most chats had to implement, because you just can't handle the frequency, because it's just non-stop gifs and non-stop memes and non-stop comments and non-stop, like, people are so excited. You can literally see it in the sentiment. It's unbelievable.
Is flow mode enough? Do you find it enough to stem the confusion? I mean, the TG app is actually quite limited for the type of environment we're in. I do find, but I think the search feature is fantastic. Like, that's the most powerful feature of Telegram by far, is TG search.
Yeah.
Well, I think 10x for users, you're probably at a 30-second slow mode, really, to mitigate that, because you're still like, because it doesn't control. It's weird. It doesn't really control the frequency fully, because if everybody's still spamming every 30 seconds, it's still a lot.
I think though that having slow mo should be a last resort, and the only reason I say that is because I honestly reckon that frequency of Telegram messages is probably a euphoria metric, like, as in you use it as an indicator as to whether you sell or not. Because if right now we're messaging like, 10 times a minute or something or whatever it is, like, oh yeah, whatever. But if it goes up to 1,000 a minute because we're almost at $1, then you kind of, well, maybe PDI is a bad example because if it pegs, it pegs. But like if it's in any other pulse chain asset, like PulseX is like 20x SAC price or something, you think that the number of messaging is like a sign of how frothy the thing is, and you want to use it as a metric compared relative to what was happening like a year ago, and go, okay, are we near the top now?
Yeah, it is.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
it is.
Obviously, you got to balance that with actually keeping the
Dude.
community under control, of course.
Oh,
But
no, totally.
yeah,
Dude, I mean, if we're at, I'm 50% out by the time slow mode is activated.
yeah, that's a good point. Very good point.
Like it's and also the thing is about slow mode, the where it works well is if it is 100% a sorry, just to come back to what you were saying, Tenor, like it is 100% an indicator of euphoria. Like you are completely categorically correct on that. But here's the thing: slow mo doesn't accommodate for like 10x to users, right? The only reason it helps is because it takes the edge off, because people are thinking, oh, I can only type once every 30 seconds. But if you've got 10 times the amount of people that are typing, it's still, do you know what I mean? You're still at that frequency. It's a good problem to have. My point entirely is it's a good problem to have. It's something that I'm actually looking forward to. Like if we can't speak every 30 seconds or minute, that means we're at the tippity top, or we're certainly in that buying zone. And I can't wait, bro. I cannot wait until we are 20x SAC. I mean, 10x SAC is like life changing anyway. PDI at 10 cents pre-peg is still life changing. If you've got 10 million, as Osprey was saying, anyone that's got 1 to 5 million in PDI, that's a beautiful, beautiful bag. You're set. You are absolutely set, because if you've got 10 million, don't even just forget about it. Just forget about it, because at 10 cents, you're at $1 million, like real hard cash. Can go anywhere in the world with that. That's unbelievable.
And not to mention, if PDI was at 10 cents, just imagine what the price would be for the other pulse chain assets as well, assuming you hold bags in other pulse chain. Like if 1/3 of your bag is PDI and the other 2/3 is like core assets or something, imagine what prices, what USD you'd have in those ones as well on top of that.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to mind share, right? Do we just amplify the mind share of where we're at the moment? Because there is an argument to be made that we would get 60% of that cash, and then the cause wouldn't get as much as what we get. There is an argument to be made of that as well. So it's like it depends on which way the flow goes. You're right, because if you're at 10 cents from PDI today, you've probably done what's that? I don't even know what the level is now. That's probably like a 70x or something like that, if I remember correctly. Some crazy number. So you've probably done a 10x on all the other assets from here. Like proportionately, because you're just not gonna, if you get that mind share. But if you hit $1, that's different. That's a complete different. Like what I'm saying is, if the peg comes before the price movement to 10 cents or anything, it's going to catch everyone off guard, and then you've got a different kind of animal. That's a completely different animal. That's a DeFi black hole.
That's a turn on slow mode, 10 minutes per message time.
Dude, it's gonna be a 3 to 5 minute slow mode, because you're that's not a 10x to user case. That's 100x to users. Because it's the biggest DeFi attack ever, right? You've just vampire attacked everyone. You pegged a stable coin, an unbacked stable coin, from virtually nothing to $1. It'll be the biggest narrative in all of crypto, regardless of how gatekept anything is. It doesn't even matter. You transcend the coin geckos and the coin desks and all that trash. You transcend it all, because there's enough DeFi users to make this thing go viral. There's enough people to go, what just happened? What was that? I don't understand. And then you do the digging and the articles and the network effect, and before you know it, you're 100x users. But we've already pegged and we've already held stability. it's a compound loop as well, because the new people that are coming in, they are deploying funds into the stable coin, which is self-reinforcing the peg. This is what other people don't understand. It doesn't even need to be pegged that long. Like, it only needs to survive basically momentarily enough for people to see it and go, what's that over there? You know, it's like a flare in the dead of night, you know, sort of comes up into the sky and people just head towards it. I don't know what it is, but I see that giant bonfire over there. It looks massive. Nothing else is lit. I'm going to head that way. Like, it's just, I don't think people can understand it. Here's the thing, right? People, it's so unbelievable that it's actually believable. Like, it's one of those things where it's so like, it's so good. It'd be like, oh, actually it is possible. Like, you know, people can't get their head around the idea because it's the ultimate weapon, right? If Richard Hart has got like an array of weapons and utility in his utility belt, there's nothing greater than having that, because it's the ultimate marketing tactic. Like,
Okay,
it's got,
so I'm gonna actually get my software.
He's also got um, a lot of people not going anywhere when the good news comes.
exactly, like who reinforces the peg? We do.
Yeah. Something else crossed my mind there is the value of smaller groups when we're talking about slow mode. But at that point, the point of any sort of major success, we would readily see the value of smaller groups because people know each other very well in smaller groups, and questions are just answered a little more thoroughly, and you can get points across that bit easier. But in a fast moving, noisy chat, it could be difficult. So I would say lean into the smaller groups you're a part of and the personal bonds you've made with people privately, and you can get good information that way too.
Absolutely.
There's,
And
there's,
just
there's, there's less ego in the smaller groups, you know. It's,
big time. Big time. Yeah, because you get all the normies coming in, right? The kind of mid curvers and that coming in, you know,
yeah.
you know, I'm not going to have any pops at any existing members. Going to make examples. You know, but you get the mid curvers coming in, you know, so they're not, they're your everyday dudes in you know, it just comes, you get a mad sort of, you get a bit of everyone. You get a bit of everyone come in, and like you said, Osprey. You know, there's no ego when you're slower. I mean, we've got 300 or so, 300 to 400 active members. You know, if that jumps to 3,000 or 30,000, you know, it's just a completely different ball game, because you're at euphoria, or you've created your own euphoria. You know, peg alone and no alt season, like peg only and our season, you're probably at 10x the users. This is just rough numbers. But if you've got the full macro environment and it's alt season across the board, across all the ecosystems, that's 100x the users for us, because we'll probably be at 30,000 then, because it's like, because it's just a case of like, you don't even have to capture that much mind share. You only have to capture a small segment of all the people. We all know what it was like in 2021 for those that were here. Like, it didn't matter what you were buying, especially even 2017. It didn't matter what you were buying. You just had to be buying something. It didn't matter what you were buying. You just had to be part of the wave. It's just a massive, giant wave. And everybody's just grabbing surfboards and saying, like, I want a bit of that. I want a bit of that. I don't really care what it is. You know, the amount of projects that came and boomed in 2021 just because they had a cool name, and they had some marketing that was relatively connected to Web3, or like some NFT project, or some, like, there was just so many narratives that happened last time, like the gaming, like gamify was huge. You know, but they weren't even building games. I mean, Somi talks about it. You know, Cardano didn't even have smart contracts. Didn't even have smart contracts, and it blew up. Did 100x. You know, some of these. I mean, what other projects were there? There was like gamify projects that didn't even have games, actual games, like didn't even do the service that they were offering, and they made like 100x. I mean, what was the name of that? that really big one. There was like a huge one that they literally released screenshots, and it did like 1000x.
I think that was Illuvium, perhaps potentially.
What was it, mate?
Illuvium?
Illuvium, that's it. Illuvium. So Illuvium had like screenshots of like what they said they were building, but it wasn't even like a formulated like in-game footage like thing. It was just like a trailer. And like that's what I'm trying to say. I'm saying they didn't even release the project and it still did numbers because it was just the speculation. And that's where the money is, the speculation. It's all about the speculation. Because if it was about tech, we'd already have won. Let's be honest. If it was only about tech and it wasn't about speculation, we'd have already won. Would have won so hard at this point because we've done everything right.
I actually think now that you mentioned the Illuvium and those games, I actually honestly think that the 2021 bull market was probably how in the 90s we had that tech boom where everyone who had .com under their names had like massively inflated stock prices and stuff. I feel like the 2021 bull market was basically like the crypto equivalent of the late 1990s tech boom, because as you mentioned, all these shitty crypto projects which would normally not see the light of day when people are thinking semi-rationally went up 100x and so forth. And now because of what happened then, the letdown was obviously the letdown with the tech boom with NASDAQ and stuff was absolutely epic. Like I think NASDAQ was trapped for like 15 years or something. And I feel like this bear market is basically the crypto equivalent of the NASDAQ post 1990s bear market. And I think that if projects are going to recover, if anything's going to recover and do crazy X's, it's going to be the ones which are actually revolutionary, of which PDAI could be one of, because only the really good companies can knuckle down and actually build something which adds value in the post 1990s boom. So maybe that's we're just echoing. We're just it's just a rhyming of tech boom in the 1990s with PDAI as maybe the next Amazon or Apple. I think PulseChain. I keep saying PulseChain is basically the Apple of crypto. Essentially, that's what I think it is.
Such a great example, mate.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're just not repeating, but we're rhyming with history. And I don't know how much we're going to pump and so forth. Maybe I might be wrong and we might go to zero. Crypto's risky and so forth. But if judging by what history says, I think we will eventually go up one day and break all-time highs and all that stuff. It's just a matter of when, just by looking at history by itself.
Totally. I mean, if you were it's such a great example, bro. Like that's probably exactly what happened with 2021. It was basically the equivalent of the .com bubble, because I mean, Amazon was $113. I just checked the number while you were talking about it, and the superior after the bubble, the only things that survived was the actual tech. And that's what I'm saying about the speculation and of tech, because it dropped $113 to $5.51, so you're 95% underwater.
Reminds me of a coin called EHEC.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's, bro. Give me some of that. I'm sorry, but give me some of that. Like if I was in 2000, if I was old enough to understand top tech and stocks in 2001, I'd have been speculating. The people who were buying the 95% dip of Amazon did very well. It's just the way it is. Like, so based on that analogy, like if you presume that the 2021 was the .com bubble, the only things that's going to survive for the next ongoing cycles are the real tech, the real hard assets, the technology, and it feels like, and it seems like, and it looks like, and everything that we read about and we look up, that PulseChain is positioning to be that kind of winner. Like it's
And
just a waiting game.
and also psychologically, like I know everyone wished that they bought Amazon at $5 in 22 or whatever. I don't know how long it took to reach the $5 mark. But then the question becomes, how many people would have had the balls and the vision to actually do that, actually put a decent chunk of money into Amazon at $5 back in the early 2000s? I know Richard Hart probably would have, but personally for me, like I probably wouldn't have. I can admit that I would not. I will, even if I had the money, I would not have had the guts or the vision to deploy into Amazon at that price at that time, because I'm like, well, it's just a distribution company, and I think it's the same for PDAI, because who has the guts to and the balls to deploy large amounts of capital into a coin which the founder of a chain who's apparently a genius has funded, and all the stuff which is happening behind, like 95% of people don't actually know what the hell's going on. So, like, yeah, I think PDAI, eHex, they're all like Amazon-ish sort of. I can sort of see, I can really feel Amazon vibes, or like Apple vibes here at this moment, with these particular PulseChain assets.
I said this the other week. Dai has the whole turtleneck, jeans and trainers vibe, while everywhere else is just garish. There's something about PulseChain which is just, it does feel like Apple on stage, Well, where all the PCs are getting viruses, and the Apple Macs just seem to be not have these problems.
Just exactly. That's exactly right. Just smooth sailing.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. Sometimes it's not the fastest. Sometimes it's just the person who can go the longest. Like it depends on how do you value the market, right? Are you valuing it for speed, or are you valuing it for endurance? Because they're different metrics. Like they're positioned differently. Like you say, if someone's buying $1,000 into Amazon after a 95% dip, you have to be a speculator, and you have to be looking for an edge case. That's the type of person that you are. You're thinking, okay, so the speculation is gone. All that's left is the product. So then I'm going to speculate on the future value of the existing product and technology, because the original wave is gone. So the question is, are we still speculating on Richard Hart? Do we still believe in Richard Hart despite everyone selling off and doing the 99%?
I think we
Because
are.
that's the game.
We're also speculating on the community surviving, even without Richard Hart. And I suspect that the fact that he's not streaming and people are still going, it goes from highly speculative to, because in the stocks, we're speculating on the future profits of the product that the company sells, because whether the tech's great, etc. Whereas I believe in crypto, we're speculating on the network effect and the strength of the community in 3 or 4 years' time, even if Richard isn't around. And I think that with sort of what Richard stands for, I think that community is held in good stead, because the people he's attracting now are people who actually care about the tech and actually care about good things in crypto, not just ripping people off and grifting them and rugging them after 24 seconds like in Solana.
Yeah, big time.
They also
It's totally
understand the importance of investing in people.
I mean, dudes and dudettes, like what other community have got 200 active? I mean, 200's like a loose number. It's actually higher than that, but we use 200 because it was used a lot to talk about who else has got 200 content creators at these levels. Like who else? Like I'm not just saying it. I know that the algorithm is completely weighted our way, but Like, who's out there talking about this and that and this and that isn't jumping across ecosystems? Because even if you're pointing at Ansem or you're pointing at Alex Becker, who's quiet at the moment, right? He's not doing any crypto. They're talking about this project, this project, this project. They're just jumping across ecosystems. Like, oh, I see a bit of money here, I see a bit of money there, I see a bit of, but they're not like super bullish into one ecosystem, and they're like die hard on those ecosystems. Like, you would have to go very, very far to find like, if you went into an XRP chat today, you would see people in there that have the OG tags in their names and all that on the telegrams, but those were the guys that were buying in the trenches, right? Those were the guys and the girls that were buying when they caught the SEC case and beyond that. And the same with Tron. You know, you went to the, because we have the most. I think I mentioned it last week, and this isn't my idea. I took this from Somi. You know, Tron and XRP are kind of our closest cousins in terms of price performance, because they're the only people that kept the diehard community and held on and got their run up, got their victory. We're closer to XRP than we are to Tron in terms of SEC, because they had the SEC on their back. You know, our founder is the only man who beat the SEC. You know, these things don't come around a lot often. They really are unicorns.
More of the OG tags have left than remain at present here in 2026, and I think I leans into one of the first things you said about the shaking out of weak hands. Like, time in doesn't equate to conviction, you know, always.
Absolutely.
You
I mean,
never
that's
know.
another.
You just never know.
Well, Osprey, that's the thing. Another beautiful thing about these things, these VCs being recorded, is we can actually look back, right? So when we do hit the bottom, we can look back and say who was on the call, who was there when it happened. You know what I mean? Because our voices are going to be the ones that are going to say, "Oh yeah, we did. We were here back in that." Like, we're going to be legends, and I'm not saying that from an ego perspective. I'm saying that we're going to be the guys that we're going to say, you know, we'll be legends in our own right, in our own, by our own metrics. You know, because we'll say, well, we did it. We held on. You know, when everybody else counted us out and, you know, shit on Richard and, you know, well, you know, pardon me, but, you know, kind of, you know, done all that stuff, you know, and said you know, hated on him and switched on him and turned on him, because it's betrayal. You can't say it any other way, right? If you believe in a founder and you buy a stock, and you're all about Richard, and then you just turn on him, you flip on him when the price doesn't go your way, and then suddenly he's a scammer and he's the worst thing. There's no accountability. There's no accountability in that, and that's, you know, that's how I feel. That's why I keep, occasionally I'll just post something about Gary or, you know, Funding Jim or anyone like that, because I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. I don't believe in it. I think if you truly, but like, at what point do you look at yourself in the mirror and say, "Nah, nobody played me. I played myself." If you don't like the price level, that's on you. That's not him. That's the market. It's like getting angry at the sky. Oh, I'm angry at the sky.
Yeah.
Everything's bad. Everything. I don't like it. It's always raining. Oh, it's just like, yeah, but dude, what are you gonna do? Like, you've got what are you gonna do? You have to wait for sunnier days. You have to believe that the weather is going to get better, or you move countries. Like, it's like, so then you move ecosystems, right? Like, nobody's keeping you here. Getting angry at the sky, getting angry at this, getting angry. I don't know. I don't understand that mindset, and I don't think we call it out enough, because I think it's like, you know, it's like the Brandon bees. You know, the Brandon bees of the of the ecosystem. You know,
I think
we just refer to them as the Brandon bees from now on.
the Brandon's. Yeah. I do think that all the influencers who have accused, I mean, the big ones who have accused Richard of being a scammer, right? I feel like it's like a big case of projection, because usually they're the ones who end up. You find out later that they're the ones who end up scamming people.
Dude,
That's something.
Dude,
Yeah, like I
there's
feel like
something in that, bro. There's something in that. I'm telling you. I'm totally with you on
there's
that.
they're projecting, and they're either projecting that they themselves are scammers in the worst case scenario, or in the best case scenario, they're projecting, that they have lack and they're poor and they're basically, like a victim, if you know what I mean. I mean, in the absence of any evidence that Richard actually sold the top to, like to enrich himself, like everyone says, oh, he sold to buy Rolexes, etc. There's no on-chain evidence of any of that stuff. So I mean, to put it another way, like if you were in a chain deep in an ecosystem, would you trust Richard Hart or would you trust Ansem to take care of you in that ecosystem in terms of intentions and actions? Like I would rather put, I mean, no one's 100%, perfect, but I would certainly put more trust into Richard Hart than objectively than say Ansem or XRP. And I guess that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't buy XRP, because I think the founders, they just dump on the community. Like there's no care factor whatsoever. But yeah, it's like I really do think that it's about the projection, it's about the people you invest in, really, and in the communities, and yeah, it's just like it becomes actually quite objective if you think about it in that way, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like weakness as well. Like there's an element of weakness. Like we have to admit that a lot of guys who projected strength have actually it's actually been revealed. I think Warren Buffett's quote is something along the lines of, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. And it's like the idea that, once the macro changes and things get really bad, you start realizing who was actually about it. Do you know what I mean? Because like there are different levels of the game. Like there are people that don't have followings and they don't have voices, who are built different. Like they're just like, I'm in it till the end, I'm in it for the trenches, like nothing's going to phase me. And then you got people who were like aping in at the sack level, who were the loudest guys, and they've either just upped and disappeared, or they've just completely flipped. They've gone the opposite way. And it's like, is that just a reflection of their character all along? Do you know what I mean? Or is there an element of that? Because okay, yeah, it's been tough. Nobody's denying that. Nobody's denying that it's been difficult. But were you ever really about it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I always ask myself that. Like, some of the guys that I've seen, there's so many influencers that have just completely disappeared. I mean, like Westcott, I used to love Westcott stuff. He's just disappeared. He's focused on political stuff. That's fine. Like, if you're just not, but he's like, that's more forgivable for me than some of the other guys. Like you got like Money Gang Crypto, who's so bullish, and then he's just completely flipped. Like he's just become like, oh, everything's terrible and we're never gonna win. Like he's convinced. He's actually convinced. And I'm like, bro, I don't think you were ever about it. I don't think you were ever about it, because you're not just going to get a handout. Like nobody's going to ape into a coin and give you 100x and then you just sail off into the distance. Like everybody who's ever made that sort of level of money has to go through trial and tribulation. It's almost like rite of passage. Like whether it's markets, whether it's life, you have to go through the trials and the tribulations, because and I think there's a lot of people. What I'm trying to say is the fact that they flipped so much and they flipped back the other way and they've gone so bearish, to me, is indicative of the way that they view the world. So they had that Solana mindset of, oh, I'm going to make money, it's going to 100x out the gate. And don't get me wrong, everybody thought that at some point, but the difference is, a lot of us who realized, oh, it didn't do the 100x, it didn't let it affect us. We're not on the spaces complaining about it all day long with other people saying this about Richard, saying that about Richard, complaining about the price, looking for someone to blame, almost just like, I understand that. I respect the people that are holding on. I still respect Money Gang Crypto for hanging on, but I don't understand. All I'm saying is I don't understand this like moaning about it. you know, and it's not even about MoneyGang crypto. It's just one example. Like, I'm sure the guy's fine, but you know, there's plenty of people that are just flipped, and I'm just like, I don't think you were ever about it. That's my point. My point is, like, they wanted a fast win, they wanted speed, and they got endurance, and they're like running out of steam, or they've ran out of steam, and it's like you signed up for something. I don't know what your expectation was, but it all comes back to expectations. And I don't understand how these bears, what I'm trying to say is, how are they so self-unaware to just go, oh, I'll just extend my timeline? Like, what's so difficult about just going, oh, I'll just extend my timeline, done, click, done. Oh, suddenly there's no pressure anymore. Suddenly there's no problem. Suddenly I don't have to worry about anything. I'm not emotional anymore. Again, unless they've got other things going on, Tenor. Like, if you're shouting scammer at the top of your voice, maybe you've got some skeletons in your closet. You know, if you've got a clean heart and you've got a clean mind, maybe you just don't care about it. Maybe as in you don't care about how long it's going to take. I don't know. There's a lot of different things going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of people that have done a lot of bad stuff on Pulse Chain and other chains, you know, that are very quick to say, oh, it's over. You know, it's almost like they want the chain to fail because then they can just sail off with the bag, and they think, oh well, at least I got some money. I don't want anyone else to do well. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean, I think
I'm just speculating here. I'm just running. You know, it's just some food for thought. I'm not targeting anyone.
They can also
Oh, no.
monetize cope as well. They can monetize cope far better than I can, or Tenor can. We can just talk about, we can moan into our phones to one another about anything, but they can almost monetize it to a degree, and they can use that value to you know, buy elsewhere if they need to. That's another angle.
I think Somi said it quite aptly. He said, "Do you want to be right or do you want to make money?" And I've seen that phrase being used in terms of Solana and stuff. Like, do you want to be right or do you want to make money? And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I kind of want to be right in the sense that I don't, like, you know, I have a conscience, so I'm not really investing in Solana and, you know, whatever. And Solana made money and I didn't. You know, I made that choice. That's sort of within my values of, I only want to invest in chains where there's no ruggers, where the general population are not full of ruggers and scammers. That's sort of my thing. But I think that, and to expand on the point, I think sometimes I look at this delay and I go, maybe it's not a bad thing that there is a delay, and it's not because I like to be rich quickly, but I think that if I became rich too quickly, I'd probably squander the wealth. And I think Somi also said something along the lines of, one of the worst things that a newbie crypto investor could have is winning early in their first, like, the first crack at it, because they get that Dunning-Kruger effect and then they squander it and they blow it and etc. I think that having the delay, if you want to look at it positively, is a bit of a character building exercise, because it teaches you how to do the research. It teaches you how to understand the concepts like community is the asset. It teaches you how to hold and not to moan and complain and handle it. Like, it certainly forced me to look into all that stuff about philosophy and things like that. You know, how to improve my coping, basically. Yeah. But like, I feel like if PDAI had pegged like last year and I hadn't made, you know, turn my X million PDAI into dollars, then I probably would have blown it. But now that I'm being forced to wait, I've been forced to actually learn, like, how do I actually handle money? Like, how should I look at it in the right way, in a healthy way, and so forth. And that delay's been forced to, I've kind of had to, I kind of have to force myself to do that whilst I'm waiting. And I obviously I'm not investing now. I think I've proven to myself that I can endure long periods of drought, essentially. And now I'm thinking about, like, holding in terms of just being strong and waiting for the blessing. But I think the delays, what it does is it winnows and culls out the weak, and what it does is it forces the strong to get stronger. So, you know, hopefully not too much longer, but I trust that the universe's timing is is going to be fine, and I'm not going to force anything, and so
Kind
forth.
of. So, amen, brother.
My wife has
Amen.
a saying. It's a brilliant saying, and she told it to me a very long time ago. I had some real life stuff going on, and she said to me, "What
It doesn't cut you.
it doesn't cut you, it carves you." I thought it was a great line.
That is amazing, and it is true, because it is all about like what you go through and how it changes you and how it carves you. You know, and here's the thing, right? There's two, in my opinion, there's two gates. There's only ever two gates that you have to pass through when you're thinking about pulse chain, in my opinion. And the first gate, before you begin anything, the first gate is, do I still believe in Richard Hart, and do I believe that this, or should I say, do I believe, to be more specific, do I believe that this ecosystem is going to survive? Right? Like, is it going to survive? Yes. Okay. So then the second gate is like, am I happy with my entry price? Because if you're speculating on, okay, so I believe the ecosystem is going to survive, am I happy with the entrant, like my entry price? Because every time you buy the blood, every time you buy, you're lowering your average entry price, your average cost basis. The only thing that matters in markets where you're in an asset that will survive and will do well. By survive, I mean survive and thrive, right? Because either the project goes by the wayside and it fails completely, or it survives and it thrives. There's no real in between, because that's not how markets work, right? They either do really well or they don't do well at all. It's as simple as that. So, you know, am I in an ecosystem that's going to survive and thrive? Gate one. If you pass through gate one, so you believe that the Richard Hart ecosystem is going to do well, then the only thing that remains is, am I happy with where I entered my position? So then you look at your position and you do your own math, because everybody's got their own math and their own aspirations of what they want to spend money on. And then you reverse engineer it. Oh, I want 100K, I've got 10 grand. Okay, I need 10x as an example, right? So then that tells you what your average entry price is. So if you're constantly buying the blood, you're lowering your average entry price. So eventually, if you pass through gate one, is the ecosystem going to survive? It's very simple. This is just first principles. Like, this isn't like rocket science or anything, although it can be used for rocket science. You know, Elon Musk talks about first principles all the time. Richard Hart talks about first principles. It's just coming back to the fundamentals. The only thing that really matters is the fundamentals, which is, do I believe this Richard Hart ecosystem is going to survive and thrive? Yes. Therefore, am I happy with my entry price, my average cost basis? If the answer is no, you keep buying. If the answer is yes, then you can pause. You don't have to buy anymore. But here's the thing: because you know, Osprey, as you and your wife said, like, you know, when you're getting you're being carved. So the new whales are being carved right now. Like, if you're in this call now and you're still buying, you are a future whale, regardless of what you like, how you feel. Because again, under the assumption that we are right and the ecosystem will survive and thrive, which is the only real reason anybody will be buying, is you're speculating that what you're buying today is going to be successful and it's going to make money in the future, then you're going to become a whale, because you're going to have a huge market share of a massively undervalued and oversold asset that's stuck in this moment of time. So it's just like, it's just for me, it's just keep it simple, stupid. You know, I think about the two gates. Do I still believe in Richard Hart? Do I still believe in the ecosystem? And if the answer is yes, I buy more.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing as well. By the way, shout out to, I'm just looking through the chat. I love what's being said here. So two things. Victor, shout out to you, bro. Appreciate you coming on. He's on the call, Victor. And I also want to say, Cryptico, I've got something on that. I want to mention one thing just on Nathan. So just because it's fun, I can dismantle his whole theory about the whole devil stuff, blah 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 blah, in one thing. I can dismantle his whole theory in one First principle. Somebody tell him that the first ever recorded manuscript of holy literature, which was the papyrus in 115, the original devil's number was 616. So this whole idea of the 666 being evil and blah, blah, blah is actually just distortion of language. So there is no 666. There is no devil's number. There is none of that. It's all 616 and it always has been and always will be. So that alone has dismantled his whole numerology theory. I could go harder. I could say, yeah, there's also a triangular ring light that's in the reflection of Richard Hart. You know, there's also there's so many fallacies in his argument, but at basic fundamentals, unless he suddenly switches up next week and says, "Oh, I saw 616, blah 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 blah," that in of itself would expose the fact that he doesn't even know what's going on. So yeah, it's just absolute comedy with Nathan.
Is that Nathan fellow still on X? I thought he'd left.
I think. Well, this is the thing. I mean, he can't make his mind up. This is the point.
right.
He can't make his mind up. So he's
Well,
come back, and then he went,
is-
and then he come back again.
yeah. So this is just, I keep saying leaning in, but this is leaning into exactly what you're saying beforehand about these influences. They don't know whether they're in or out because life is real and they need money. And sometimes it's just great to be make money rather than be right.
Yeah, big time. That's exactly what Tanner was saying. Yeah,
You know,
you want to make money.
So it's like let's monetize that and see what we can do, and maybe secretly keep investing into PulseChain, which you know, well, I would be, but or maybe he's just investing somewhere else. But you have like how can you have any faith in people like that? Like they're not for you, you know. I mean, we're here. Like there's three of us speaking. There's a few people listening. There are people that want to be here and listen. I think the majority, and we're speaking, and we're ego free, right? But these people,
Yeah.
these kinds of people that end up being I wouldn't even call him an influencer. He just seems to have a lot of reach. And he's a young person. He doesn't seem to have gone through much, you know. He hasn't been carved by life. He's these are not good people, man. You know. How can you have trust and faith in anybody like that?
I think you were cutting off.
So I was just saying.
Alfred.
Oh, sorry.
I think we're all in general agreement on all that anyway.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
even
100%.
I don't pay attention to it. See,
Well, yeah, absolutely, and it is good engagement, and I do like calling people out. Like I enjoy it. I've got to be honest. I do like calling people out because
you're good at it.
I mean, dude, it's just more resolve. You know, it just makes your resolve stronger. You know, because it's inspiring the believers more because it's difficult, bro. Like it's difficult trawling through crypto Twitter on Pulse Chain when everybody's fudding. So why can't we fight back? You know what I mean? Like the way I look at it is, well, they get to say that it's all trash, so I'm going to say it's not. Do you know what I mean? Like, why can't I balance that argument? Because there are people that are watching that are getting fudded out, and maybe they're good people and they want to just change their family's life. So what gives you the authority, in my opinion? Like again, it's not ego, but what gives these people the authority to fud projects? You know, when actually it could be life changing because you've given up on it. Like you know, you got to fight for the little guy, right? Because the whole it's cool to fud the market right now when we're bearish. Everybody's right when it's bearish and you're calling it bearish. Like Ivan on tech has been right since October, technically. But when it starts flipping bullish, right, he's going to be right again because he's going the trend. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, but it's cool to be right, but it's not cool to be right when you're currently wrong, if that makes sense. So like if I'm 5 years into the future and I believe Pulse Chain is going to be a massive number, I have every right to say today, no, actually the fudders are wrong. You guys are just bearish, you've just quit, you know, insert rage bait comment, because it rallies the believers behind you and it pushes the bears out, because we don't want that shit. Like, in my opinion, I don't want to read that. Don't want to read that because it's not fair on the people that are getting in today. It's just not fair. It's not an ethical thing. I'm just saying that's my own personal opinion. Nobody cares what I think. There are no ego, as Osprey said, there's no ego in it. But it's just fun to push back on these narratives when they're just getting hit. Also, we're getting hit in the face by it every day, right? Who wants to sign in to crypto Twitter and read the, or RH this, RH that every day when you love the man? I don't want to be reading that stuff about somebody who's actually, in my opinion, the greatest man in crypto. Okay, so what if he says, "Oh, I'm the self-appointed, I'm the hero of the story"? So what? Nobody questioned Muhammad Ali when he was saying he was the world's greatest and he won every fight and people started releasing songs about him and telling him he was the winner. At that time, he was the undisputed champion in the world. It didn't make him arrogant. It made him factually right, factually correct. We're just early, in my opinion. That's all.
Yeah.
We're just early.
I totally agree with it. The only thing I would add is when we are pushing back against the the guys who are fighting us and trying to spread the good word, as long as we're focused on the ball, not the man, like we can say you're wrong, everything on chain says you're wrong, and everything in macro says you're wrong. But as long as we don't devolve to saying because you're wrong, you're an absolute retard and a piece of crap, blah blah blah. We don't need to do that because that's what we're basically stooping to their level if we do it that way, and we're above that. So yeah, as long as we push back against their content and not let it devolve to this guy's an absolute piece of shit, blah blah blah, I think we should be all right, because otherwise we're being hypocritical in that sense. So yeah, like fight hard against their content, but sort of can just play the ball, not the man. That's all I would
This is
suggest.
it. I mean, we don't need to say any of that. Like, it doesn't make us more right. I like to think that we're the optimists, right? Because the
I'm not
optimists
saying you're
are,
doing it, by the way. I'm not saying
you know,
you're actually doing that.
yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I have, I have thrown out some smoke, but nothing that I couldn't handle. I enjoy it, and also I do it for rage bait. To be honest, it's purely strategy. Like, and it's not like you're a POS, you're this, you're that. It's not, that's not what this is about. It's always just about having that conversation, throwing it back. If people start throwing it back, I mean, you know, not just that, it's the factuality, right? People calling Richard Hart a scammer when he's already beaten the scam police in open court is just factually incorrect. Like, people have to accept facts over feelings. The fact is he beat the SEC, and the SEC's job at that time was to catch scammers and fraudulent cases, and he beat them. Like, it's a fact. It's written. It's actually in history on a docket. But people go, nah, that doesn't matter though. No, it does matter though. It does matter. Like, you have to. I'm just saying, like, it's always fun anyway. It's always fun, like, reminding people that they're wrong because they are factually wrong, and the market doesn't prove us right, if that makes sense. So it's like it's a nice neutral ground, and it creates engagement. It inspires the believers. It's fun anyway, because what else are you going to do to pass the time when you're not researching? You're on crypto Twitter. You're looking for reasons to stay in the game. When you're not at work, you're getting your money, your DCA into the ecosystem, or you're watching a bit of Hopium. You're watching a bit of Somi. You're watching a bit of Caledon Crypto. You're watching a bit of some of the guys that are still in the game, still putting out content. Not everything you're going to agree with, and we all have our own anchoring biases, and we want to look at information and say, oh, that agrees with my narrative. I'm going to listen to you, Tenor. I'm going to listen to you, Osprey. If you guys say anything that's bullish, I'm naturally going to think, oh yeah, I've got an affinity with that. Do you know what I mean? Because I've got my own biases. I'm in it for the long haul, but also I'm also like unemotional enough to say, actually, is that right? Is that not wrong? Maybe we should look into the facts, look into the research, because the only reason I'm really held on is because of the facts. Like, if I truly followed my emotions, I probably would have quit a long time ago. it's the facts that really keeps you in the game, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's not it's no right or wrong answer. You know, there is no right or wrong. It is just about, you know, hanging on, hold. What do you believe in, right? You know, what are you? How are you going to spend your time? You've got limited time units on this planet. Are you going to spend it invested in crypto or some other asset class, or what's your financial goal? You know, what do you believe in, like ethically, all that kind of stuff.
You did you did really make me laugh out loud about a week and a bit ago with the you challenged someone or someone challenged you on X and something about the pulse chain season, and you pushed back on him and you said it's soon going to be your mum season. I thought it was brilliant. That was freaking brilliant.
God, yeah.
That was
Yeah,
genius.
yeah. He said something like, "Oh, it's when our season or something." He's trying to troll me, and I said, "Yeah, when your mum's
Yeah.
season."
Yeah. But that's right. It's like what you do there is not, it's not rude. It's not like cutting or anything like that. It's you're playing the game and like everyone can laugh, even the bad guys can laugh at that, you know. It's good. It's good engagement. I like it, you know.
Yeah, it's just neutralizing. Like I just think if you're too, the truth is often in the middle. You know, it's not like I'm saying
Yeah.
like it's your mum and Richard Hart's like the best man in crypto, and I'm weighing in and I'm pushing back on you. You know what I mean? It's just sometimes it's just
Yeah.
nice to you know, if somebody says something dumb, sometimes it's the only response is to say something dumb back, because then we're both dumb. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you're really good at that. You're really good at it, man. It's very I think you're actually the best at it. I don't see, well, I don't follow too many people, but
Yeah, no, I
you're the best
appreciate
at
that,
it,
bro.
awesome.
Just I'm just standing on the shoulder of giants, mate. You know, I'm watching Richard and seeing what he did and what he's done well, and some of his reply guy stuff is just state of the art. You know, because I'll
Yeah, it's
read it
top
and be like,
tier.
that's amazing, top tier. So I'm just duplicating the man, in my opinion. You know, and
Yeah.
that's just the way I see it.
Tech question. Any more? Has there been? I remember catching an update from Liberty Swap about hardware wallet support for ZKX, but is that still in the works? I just didn't catch any update about it since.
Yes, as far as I can see.
I only say because I was thinking of wallets today, and they were
Just
that new hardware wallet, but Keystone thing was they're
yeah,
taking orders, I think.
it's quite interesting. I'm not familiar with Keystone. I'm a
No,
Trezor
me
guy.
either. Yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm very curious why they went down that road. I'm going to have to do a bit of research. I'll probably do a lot more. I've got, this is the beautiful thing about PulseChain, right? There's so much to do. There's so much to research and to look into. I mean, I've not fully explored the ZK wallet. I love it so far. I love what I've seen, but I haven't fully done the whole thing, you know. And then you combine that with a Keystone wallet. I mean, dude, where I mean, we say it every, you know, we said it last cycle. You know, we're pre-viral, and it just feels pre-viral. Like it feels pre-viral. I'm sorry, it is what it is. Like
yeah,
there's too much stuff going on this chain. There's too
yeah,
many people that want this thing to win. There's too much innovation. There's too much eyeballs. There's too much. Like we are totally and utterly undervalued, and the tech is just. I mean, you can't. RG3 and a few of the other OG hexagons are out on the streets handing out flyers and talking to people. They're handing out these free kit, these tablets, and what, you know, whether you think that there's a 4D sort of 4D chess going on, game of chess going on, where Richard's gonna actually start pumping the chain and then blame it all on the tablets, that's okay too. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that, because it's not a very bad narrative to get behind. And not to mention that there is a level of marketing that's going to happen anyway, even if 20% of the buyers of, you know, the people, let's say 5% of the people who actually got the tablets actually start buying on chain and, you know, joining down in the ZK wallet and actually trading, or should I say buying in, that's still a win. That's still a massive win, right? It's still brand awareness. You know, not every Coca-Cola sign that you drive past on a billboard means that it has a good ROI, but it has brand awareness. It doesn't have to be direct sales. There's other mechanisms that are happening at play. So, and if 90% of it comes from Richard, and he starts buying it all up, and if he is actually Godwell and not Godwell, it's all bullish in my opinion. Like, it doesn't matter. But the point is, when the consumers, like everyday people and crypto guys, are coming on board and they're coming across the Pulse chain, they want tech that works. And if they're using the ZK wallets and they're using the and we do, and the brand deal is big enough with the Keystone, then I mean, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. Maybe, in my opinion, it's all positioning. I think he's getting the ZK wallets, he's getting the infrastructure built, he's getting everything in line with PDAI, he's getting the Keystone stuff now set up. Liberty Swap, obviously, I think we can all agree, is probably Richard, or directly connected to Richard, and it's like they're setting everything up. And then someone shared it in the chat today, and then at any moment you can get a god candle. At any moment, because imagine you get a god candle, imagine you get something mad come out of nowhere. Let's say we've got a few more months. I'm sure Richard has his eye on the top wallets, the ones that aren't him, right? I'm sure he's watching the Rochelle, the Rackhams, and he's watching other people and the syndicates and the different, these big whales, and I'm sure he's watching what they're doing. And I'm sure he knows that, oh, okay, if I deploy this, I'm going to get sold into. And also he's aware of the greater crypto market, and he's aware of macro. So he's balancing a few plates, like he's spinning a few plates. So what does he do? He knuckles down, continues to build ZK Wallet, ZK Wallet, Keystone, and other things, and partnerships and all this. And we don't know what's planned. Like, we don't know if he's behind the scenes, he's already collaborated with some of these guys and he's just releasing piece by piece.
Nor should we know.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I was talking to a friend yesterday and this morning about Pulse Chain, and he said to me, where do I buy it? Can I get it on Binance? And I just laughed. I was like, if you can get it on Binance, we've already won.
Yeah.
Like us getting on Binance is like he was like, is that a good thing? I was like, dude, like, getting us on Binance, like, complete normie, has no previous crypto experience. I was like, is that getting on Binance, is that a big thing? I was like, dude, that's literally, that's one of the biggest things that's going to happen, in my opinion. I think that if our future has Binance, I mean, we've made it. Like, and there's nothing to say that isn't already in the works. There's not, yeah, I'm just that's the margin, that's the edge. Very exciting.
I'm very excited about the macro background to everything. Everything is advancing, and that's something you can measure, just like cohort data. It's hard to measure mystery, you can just make guesstimates or whatever, but the macro background is pretty cool. We've come so far. We have come so far. Sort of. I feel like late July, August, going through end of year is just going to be something else for us.
Absolutely. I mean, two things on that, Osprey, which I think you'll find very interesting. Somi shared a graph yesterday. It was basically the economic sentiment on his video. It's like the global economic sentiment, predominantly US, and it was showing that we are at the lowest level of economic sentiment. So that's how people feel about in the future, and they use a combination of indicators to comprise the data. And it's been the lowest since it's the lowest now since 1979. So the second lowest time was 1979, and that was followed by a boom in the 80s and the 90s, across all the major sort of macros. So, or if you're a bit of a contrarian, which you should be really if you're in markets, because that's the ultimate way to play the game, because you're betting that the current state is going to change. If you believe that we are in a surprise, we've been in, we've hit the bottom of the macro, which we have. I'm not saying belief, I'm saying if we have, then you believe that things are going to turn around. That is the best time to buy. So the best time to buy is when things are not doing very well at all. If you're whatever asset class you're in. And the second thing I wanted to mention was Han Solo's just shared in the main the S&P 500 by Kobayashi Letter, which is a very reliable macro source, by the way, for anybody who's unaware. Very, very reliable. Because there's a lot of clickbait on Twitter. But yeah, it says here, breaking, the S&P 500 rises to its highest level on record, now on track for its first 9-week win streak since 2023.
Good day to Han Solo. It's in the real world. We've been making some moves in real life, and just hearing other people's stories in our sort of chain of we're doing house stuff at the moment, and you make a few calls, you speak to different people, and you really get a gauge of the sentiment. Otherwise, you're not really hearing real people's stories if you're just reading the internet or whatever, or propaganda newspaper. But when you actually listen to people on the end of a phone and the financial situation around home ownership, and it's evident people are shitting themselves, but they are in this country.
Totally.
Things are not good. Things are not good here. I get the impression there's a wave of it feels like global, but the sentiment here is just awful. It really is. It feels like a great time to be invested in something at the bottom. And I just, so I'm just kind of getting back to what you were saying there with the real world example.
Yeah, totally. It's just like a wave of pessimism, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't get people. You can't get people to do stuff, or the young people are gone. And the people you do get, they're charging top rate, and you can't get them for weeks because they're so in demand. Because the service is spread so thin now. People are becoming more. I think they're turning more to YouTube to do their own handiwork and educate themselves on how to do tasks that you normally have to pay for, but on large scale, like house building and extensions and the stuff we used to take for granted sort of 10 years ago, that it could be done easily. It's not. Everything is sort of falling over itself. But it tells you that, that is a side effect of macro. And
Wow, this is it. I mean, people are just, it's just, especially the UK, people in the UK, like you say, there's a lot of, it's very doom and gloom. I mean, it's very doom and gloom for most people because, just do the numbers, do the math, right? Most people now are working couples, if you're living with a partner, a sort of individual man, single man can't really afford to provide for his family on one wage. It's just a reality of life at the moment in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, if your average rent is somewhere between £1,000 and £1,500, I'm talking about like not just your rent, but because a lot of rent is like £1,200 now, like somewhere between £1,000 and £1,200 for like a small sorry, not student, but like small flat, but that's what a lot of students are paying, whether you're a single person, unless you're in halls, but that's not the accurate data set for the British public, if you're, or the UK public at whole, because if you put it this way, if you're on a good job, right, and you're earning like 24 grand a year, I'm talking about, that's not a good job, but that's like an average job, right? You're on 2 grand a month, but you got your taxes and all that, you're probably at 1,600. You're at break even every month. You don't have any money for a holiday. You can't think about the future. You can't pay for, you can just about afford to pay to run a car, right? You're just like, the game is just so much harder. You can't, of course, it's demoralizing because you can never get ahead. You can never get ahead. Like I'm saying that there, unless you've got a little bit of capital built up and you're taking risks and you're investing in cryptocurrency or anything else that's kind of like that, like you know, it's just so difficult for everyday people, especially young people. Like if you're in your early 20s or you've just come out of university, you're trying to get a job, you know, you've got people with multiple degrees. This has been an issue in the UK for years and years and years, literally 15, as far as long as I can remember. People coming out of university with degrees and they can't get the job, they can't get a job in the field that they trained in, so they've got 60 grand's worth of debt. They can't get into a job in that field. It doesn't exist. That job market doesn't exist, for, you know, because economically everything's just slammed. You've got inflation running off, like literally just like inflation is just off the scale. I mean, every country is most Western countries are experiencing it anyway, but the UK especially, because we have high taxes, right. So like multiple people have got, you know, whether you're high taxes, even the US has got high taxes, but the difference between the US right now is, you know, they're on a bit of an economic boom, so you've got a lot of money being made. Like it's not, they're not yet out the woods, but they're getting, it's getting better for them, you know. Whereas the UK for a long time has not have really felt better. I mean, even if you did the math, let's say you've got a good job, I mean like a good job, and you earn 3 grand a month, right? You feel like you're winning, you're spending 15, let's say you, after everything, you know, a night out with your friends once a week or whatever, you know, and you've got all your rent and your bills and your shopping paid for, and you're on 2 grand, you've got 2 grand you've spent, you've got a grand left over. You it's going to take you, and you're saving up for a deposit. The average property price in the UK is like 300k now. So it's going to take, and the average, unless you've got like a 0% mortgage or whatever, if it's a 5% down, you know, if it's 10% down, that's 30 grand. So it's going to take you 3 years of doing everything right before you can have enough money to buy your first home. But at the rate of inflation, the property that you want today at 300k is going to be 350, closer to 400k by the time you get to the deposit number. You just can't, the game is so demoralizing because you've spent 3 years trying to get into a property. Meanwhile, you've got all the taxes and you're still stuck in the same job and there's nowhere to progress. It's just a very difficult game, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's the end of the world. I'm not trying to be a doomer about it. But unless you're taking risks, you're far better off to take a little bit of risk in cryptocurrency and say chuck a grand into that and hope that I make a 3x, because it's going to be, instead of me saving 3 months, you know, I've got that 2 months for virtually nothing, for holding. You know what I'm
You know,
saying? It's just
this.
like,
Sorry, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
I was just saying, it's real. All I'm saying is like, that's not the case for everyone, and I don't want it to come off like that's the doomer, but that's the reality for a lot of people. I'm just saying that that's the reality for a lot of people, and most people, especially young people starting in their life, like they're not gonna, they're struggling to get to 3 grand a month. Like I'm used the example of 3 grand a month because the average, you're spending somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 pounds a month just to live a basic needs life in the UK. So that's my point.
Yeah, I mean it's the same worldwide. Like in Australia, for example, an average salary of someone at the moment is around $85,000 a year. Where in Sydney, for example, the property price, the average price of a house in Sydney is 1.5 mil, which is roughly, we're looking at around on average about 12 or 13 times your yearly income, which is probably the worst bubble in the world after Hong Kong. And you have rents which are around $3,000 a month as well. I think it makes me kind of more bullish about crypto because eventually it's going to get to the point where people are going to find out that the only way that I'm going to get ahead is if I go full on into crypto or some other high risk asset. Like you're going to saving up for a property, you're going to just going to slide behind because the price of property growth is faster than the price, the rate at which your salary is going up. So you're falling behind there. Stocks and bonds and you know that kind of stuff. um, they're basically, you still take a bit of risk on that, and they're not going much faster than inflation, and you have no assets. So eventually, logically, the only way you're going to actually get ahead is if you go and finance and go hyper degen. And I think that's bullish for cryptos because people are going to finally get that, and they're going to go hyper degen in crypto, especially when they finally start seeing green candles come in. So that actually makes the use case of crypto, which is green, effective for most cases, green candles, even more uh, pronounced. Except the issue, of course, is we have to wait for it to happen, and we don't know when it's going to happen. But it logically must happen in the future. Hopefully, more shorter term than medium.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, you can't, we can't go on this long. Like, you can't keep going. Something's going to break. Either people's patience is going to break, and like you say, they're going to pivot to crypto, or the fiscal system at large is gonna break because it can't sustain this level of inflation. And then in which case you've got to print, right? And if you print, then crypto explodes. So either way, we win. That's really what we need. I mean, that would be the best outcome, but I don't think Wash is going to go that way. Just purely on the reserve, world reserve currency, US dollar. I don't see Wash printing. If he does print, amazing, amazing. It's the best outcome that we could actually have asked for, because you've got another bubble of 2021, and we'll deal with the inflation in 3 to 4 years. And it sucks to be a normie, but the thing is, it's like the system is only going one way, unfortunately. So you kind of have to position yourself to win. And it's not like other people can't Google it. How do I get rich? What are the available asset classes, especially with AI now? Like, how can I improve my financial situation? Everybody's got the opportunity if you're in a capitalist country. I'm not saying it's not going to be difficult, but we've all journeyed that. Do you know what I mean? That's why we've all arrived at crypto, because we realize there is almost nothing. There's nothing else at this point. Like, at this moment in time, everybody's financial situation is different, but based on the examples that you were saying, Tenor, like, and me and Osprey were saying about the UK and that, where else are you going to go? What else are you going to do? If you know of anything, let me know, because I'll be interested. Just like, just here we are.
And it's like, guys, keep my wife company. Keep the chat open though, it's I'll let it keep recording for another while. And
Absolutely, bro. Enjoy the sun.
is that cool? Yeah, the sun is out today where we are. It's just incredible. Like 3 days of amazing weather. It's just fantastic. Great for the mind,
Yeah, sounds good, bro.
Chat to you later.
Speak soon. Cheers, Osprey. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, man. Bye.
That's so
Yeah, we'll just leave it open comms, guys. If you want to talk about anything, just feel free to unmute yourself and start the discussion. There's no formalities or anything like that, as we always do. So, open mic. Or if there is any subjects you guys want us to talk about, I'm happy to sort of dive into it. I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy researching. What I might do while things are quiet is take a look at this Keystone and see what AI is saying about Keystone, do a bit of research on that, and give my opinion.
I do have one question before I go. It's getting late where I am, but have you or anyone else identified with a degree of credibility or certain, I don't know, credibility is probably the right word, like a cluster of wallets that can be linked to the OA, which are accumulating in the $1 to $5 million range and so forth? or linked to the OA and then distributing those wallets from the 20 million to the 10 million. I think I heard about that earlier in our call, but I just wasn't sure about. I didn't fully grasp what the context and so forth. If you're able to detail that any further.
Truthfully, I think that's probably a question for Osprey, because he's kind of big on the wallets distribution. One thing I will say, what is evident is that there is a redistribution that is constantly, like just constant redistribution into the 1 to 5 million range. Whether it's connected to the OA wallet specifically, I'm not sure. That's something that I'd have to come back to you on, because I could speak to. I could probably take a look at the data set actually, and take a look at that. Osprey's probably done something along those lines though too, so I don't want to step on his toes.
Sorry, that sounds evident. No, all good, all good. I'll just take that question on notice. I'll probably ask that next week or something. The situation might have materially changed by then. Who knows?
Yeah, and even if you put it in the chat, bro, and just tag him,
Okay.
then he'll know, because I'm sure he'd probably enjoy digging out those answers and seeing if there's a connection to the OA. Because I mean, dude, that would be an amazing thing, thing to find, because that would only double down our conviction for a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
as
appreciate that.
far as I understood, it was all just speculation. Um, like if there were direct links of the OA buying PDI, wouldn't that be like hard evidence of? I mean, I guess we already have lots of direct link OA wallets, but as far as I understood, there's direct link of OA wallets buying PDI.
Yeah. So I mean, you've got the 2822 and some of the others, which are directly. Here's the connection. Not necessarily directly buying PDI. That's a question that I've not yet answered, I guess, is the point. But in regards to connecting to the wallet, it's connecting to PDI in terms of infrastructure, and then yes, the answer to that is yes. We have seen the OA wallets connecting to MakerDAO, Arbitrum. You got the 1967 wallet, and how they all work they're all working in tandem.
Right.
So you could say yes. I mean, that is, I
Yeah.
guess buying PDI is probably the cherry on top, if that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks.
the with, but not PDI directly, because there's speculation on interacting with Aave or any of these other the R protocol or whatever. Like still no direct link between that and PDI as well. There's still that layer of speculation as opposed to just directly buying PDI. But I agree, and those connections are very real. Like someone was saying, like, why would you interact these protocols with no money in it if there's like there's a reason why you're doing it, and there's not any money in it. So what is the reason? And that's where we're speculating it's PDI peg mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the link really is the 1967, because that sort of vanity address, I call it the vanity address, because basically that wallet was printed with the end 1967, almost certainly named after the ERC 1967, which is basically a proxy that governs all the protocols being captured. So, and that was funded by 5996, which is Richard Hart's wallet. So, and that interacts directly with the deployer helper contracts. So that's the connection there with PDI, because basically on chain, Richard Hart is interacting with, he funds the 5996 wallet, funds 1967, and then that captures, the Arbitrum and all the others, the MakerDAO and all that, and then tweets obviously the opposite. So really, that's the whole narrative. That was the whole narrative behind that. The fact that he was saying one thing but doing different on chain. So that's the primary connection. And then obviously you've got the 2822, which is the primary OA wallet, and then that holds the largest position of wrapped Bitcoin PWBTC on PulseChain. So then a $1 PDI peg, then this wallet's holdings alone dwarfs the entire PDI supply value. And then that means that the collateral to back a full repeg basically already basically exists. So it's kind of like the mechanism to keep the peg is already there in the 2822 wallet. So they have different functions. So you've got the 2822, which is the collateral reserve, which is the RH primary OA wallet, and then which we do have on-chain transactions with PDI, the whole MakerDAO system behind the scenes. So there's no real reason why that should be happening on chain again. If he's got his fingerprints all over these wallets that are supposed to be doing nothing, because the argument, and then you've got the 1967, which I talked about, and then you've got the 86FF, which is the official airdrop wallet. So that was created 2 days before PulseChain launch, which confirms that the blueprint existed ahead of time. And then that connected to the bridge validator and the AMM fixer bot, which then sent the PComp to enable the compound takeover. So you could, the counter narrative to all of this is, oh, well, he took over the compound to basically disable it. But the point is, 18 months later, they're still interacting with the contracts. So it's like, comes back to fundamentals. If they've taken it over and they've kind of like disabled it, because that's the counter narrative to PDI, right? The main one, the strongest argument against the PDI narrative is, well, he took over the contracts and he's disabled them. Okay, let's run with that narrative. Why is he still working on it 18 months later then? Because there is absolutely no reason. Because if you take over the infrastructure and you want to disable it for bad actors to not be able to take advantage, you do your minting and all that, and you mint it to oblivion, right? Because there's an argument to be made for some projects like LUSD, that got minted to oblivion. That was shown on chain to be linked to a Richard Hart ecosystem, Richard Hart wallet. But then there was like some confusion on, is he minting or is he not minting, et cetera, et cetera. And then, there was a whole narrative that, oh, maybe it had been extracted, and the pioneers had realized that, so they just like destroyed it finally. Again, we don't really know, but the point is, there is a narrative. I'm saying that there is a narrative to argue that if somebody is still operating on the project and they haven't minted it to oblivion, then that means that they're actively building on the project. Nobody can argue the fact that LUSD is dead because it got minted to whatever infinity, some quintillion number or something. So there's like no going back on that. So this narrative it's just an example of an ecosystem that got forked across that was supposed to be a stable coin, that had this repegging narrative, except it didn't have any, like, the PDI narrative. So it's like the closest thing that we can find to PDI on chain from the forked copies. But the PDI narrative, the reason it's different and the reason that it's differentiated is because it hasn't been nuked to infinity. Like, if Viet Dong was a real guy and it wasn't Richard, then the argument is, why hasn't it already been drained? Right? Why has it not been destroyed by doing so? And the truth is, because they don't have control of the contracts. the people who have control of the contracts are directly connected to 2822 and 1967 and your 5996. And your 5996 funds all the operations. And it took over the ARB via proxy upgrade, like the Arbitrum. It sent PComp to the C8 A6 controller wallet. So that enabled the compound governance takeover. And that's the operational, that's the hub for the entire build. So the 596 is like, they all have their own individual, they're the 4 primary wallets for the wallet network. And they've all got their own use case, and they can all be linked directly back to Richard Hart. So whoever's in control of these wallets is either Richard or working for Richard, which is the complete opposite to what we've seen on X. Complete opposite. There are some Easter eggs, and obviously some of the posts that he said, but the way that it was distributed, you know, the information across the 33 tweet storm was, this thing's broken, it's trash, it's garbage, but garbage can do well for numbers. And along the way, there was obviously some treasure, you know, bits and pieces of Easter eggs along the way. Like, one of my favorite ones is where he talks about the it basically being in control of the ESM doesn't do what people think it's going they think it does. LOL. Right? There's an Easter egg in that, because we later established through Nine Iron's findings and his research that he was right. The ESM was an emergency shutdown feature, but it wasn't a nuke. It was presented as a nuke, like it was presented like it was, once it's switched on, it can't be switched off. Like, as in, like, it can't be changed, but that's incorrect. That was a lie. And it was also perpetuated by characters like Scorn and some other on-chain guys, or supposedly on-chain guys, who were saying that, nah, it can never be done. No, ESM is done. It's over. Well, that's not correct. It's an emergency shutdown module, but it's not indefinite, because it can be overrid by things like Compound, Aztec, Arbitrum. They can all be used in tandem, and then you can run what they call the PSM. So there's like, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but if you kind of put away all the noise and the communications publicly, and you only focus on the chain, you can see the direct connections. And that's the bit that I love the most. That's what fascinates me the most. And we're very lucky to have people like Nine Iron who are actually cutting through the noise and presenting the facts, so that we can understand it.
Okay, I definitely missed that part. So just to be very direct, you're saying that the ESM, like PDAI, can be minted again with contract upgrades, changes.
Yes, but not minted in the sense of, like, it cannot be ran through its original contracts, in the sense of, like, MakerDAO is not, basically, the speculation is that they're going to continue, that the peg can still happen, but not via the route that we originally thought, which actually aligns with the Catty narrative of, like, I'm going to activate ESM and send it down. Because if that was smoke and mirrors, that makes complete sense, because we don't actually need the ESM for PDAI to succeed. That's the point. The bottom line is, we don't need the ESM, because the ESM is not what people think it is. And it comes back to basically, we could, putting it simply, there's an override. There is an override, but you need certain things in place. Like, the capital argument is 100% true. You cannot create a fractional based stablecoin without some reserves. You have to have reserves. So you know, the ESM and the PSM mean nothing if Richard doesn't back it. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why, that's part of the speculation is we're all assuming that he has been accumulating and has billions of PDAI. Yeah, as part of that.
Exactly, which comes back to Tenor's original question, really, which was the distribution of the wallets, which is a great question because that only really confirms what you're asking about, dude. Because it all kind of connects into that same, what direction is it all moving? And are we speculating that it will be, that Richard is gonna back it ultimately? I mean, here's the thing as well. We're speculating on top of the facts. The facts are him or his team have been interacting with the contracts, and then the question is why? Because if it's not stable, if it's not a stable coin, what is it? Because all those technologies are lending perpetuals, which is also another interesting thing that Liberty Swap's been talking about in recent weeks, about how we're bringing perpetuals on chain. Now you need lending platforms and you need the tech for that, and that's why it's just there's too much happening. There's too much happening that's on chain right now that cannot be denied. For there to be absolutely nothing going on, and it's not like they're like automated transactions or they're contracts that are just in limbo and they're being used, but it's just AI or it's natural. People are actually running these calls and these functions.
Yeah, yeah, and for me, like my gut feeling says there's way too much volume on PDAI than there are people talking about it. Like for as many people that call it a scam, like the volume on the in the market is just way higher than I would ever expect it to be if Richard's not accumulating. Um, and I guess the other thing to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but the biggest piece that's still missing are oracles, right? Like something to base, like a decentralized oracle essentially to make all of these protocols that have been to get revamped.
Yeah, there's an element of Oracle definitely at play here. The only issue with that is the thing is Richard has talked about in the past that he doesn't really like oracles because they obviously have an element of risk. There's still security risk with them, but it depends because that's also coming from a perspective of not trusting other founders. If it's your oracle, and again, assuming that Richard Hart is the best man in crypto, and he does come from a good ethical standpoint, and he doesn't want to trash people on his own chain, and he does want prices to report accurately, then there is an argument to be made. Yes, you can use oracles, and they have less security attack surface or attack vector than bridges, and they're better if you have them. You are in control of them, so there is an element of that, yes. But there is no oracle, like there's nothing to show us what he's going to do on the oracle element, but it is a piece of the puzzle because it does need to report accurate prices. And a lot of the oracles that come across, like Liquid Loans was using a certain oracle. I think it was the Chainlink one, and they were using that technology, and that was broken. And then there was a whole repegging temporarily on LUSD before that thing crashed, and that was involving an oracle, so that reported a different price which gave it like a 10x or something. There was like an element of that, so there is manipulation when it comes to that. So I don't really know totally how it's going to interact, but it is a missing piece. It's good that you're pointing that out, to be honest, too, because it is a missing piece and we don't really know how it's going to work. There are ways around it, because again, it's perpetual. So it's kind of like not perpetuals in terms of trading instrument, but the self-reinforcing. Because if the oracle points to the same price as well, then that data is important. It's the same way CoinGecko get a lot of their data from that information. So it's a good question. It's just I just don't know how it's going to fit in. I mean, it's in the timeline because it has to be solved. Because the 1967, I mean, one thing is for sure, the 1967 is interacting with Oracle contracts, but I'm not as familiar with the oracles as I am with the other stuff. So to answer that subject really is that there is movement of the oracles, but whether he's going to go ahead with it or not, I don't know. It makes sense in terms of like if you want to put like a quote unquote roadmap for PDI, because it is an important element. Like we do need accurate price reporting. But then I mean if you can pull it off, that makes sense because yeah. But put it this way, all the reliable oracles on chain are actually switched off at the moment, dormant slash switched offs, not operational, and they all link back to the things that are currently being used on contracts. So the interactions with contracts all come back to those things, which is your arbitrums and your compounds and your maker DAOs and that. So yeah, TBC on that. I mean, you've got the Aave fork as well, which is also in development with Liberty Swap. So and that's I believe that's got Oracle tech too. So there's a lot of, I don't know. I think if all the oracles started pointing at a different price point, and you've got the capital, and you've got the reserves, crazier things have happened. And then you've got Aztec, those contracts are being verified on PulseChain as well, which is that's actually the new alpha. That's the latest alpha. The 1967 and the Aztec are the two biggies. They're the big ones that have happened recently, and they're the ones that has kind of got everyone's attention, especially with 99 and his findings. And then the only thing left to do beyond that, because if you put it this way, if you've got the Aave fork, which is currently in active development, and Liberty Swap deliver on that, and then the oracles are brought back online via helper contracts on 1967, which is happening on chain. So it's indicative that it's going to happen. So what I'm trying to say is like there's the speculation and then there's the fact. The speculation is the oracles will be online and Liberty Swap will complete their development on the Aave fork. The fact is that we know that they are developing on it, and then the 1967 wallet has interacted with the helper wallets. So if we speculate that we're right on both those things, then you've got the Aztec, which is the contracts that are currently being verified. The only thing left to do is the governance vote on MakerDAO to override the ESM. And then you've got the peg stability module, which is not yet deployed. And then that's the self-executing flywheel. So it's Aave fork, not 1967 wallets with the oracles. And then you've got the Aztec Connect's already happening. And then you've got MakerDAO. So
And
yeah,
the pioneers already have governance control of MakerDAO, I guess.
yeah, they
I
do.
missed
They
that.
do. Yeah, they do. And this is why then the Catty narrative was so interesting, because she basically, gave the control back, or somebody. The most interesting part about the Catty scenario is that she was given governance control. So if you think, again, it comes back to first principles, right? If you think that Richard Hart's lost complete control of the chain, fine. That's a narrative that, I don't believe that that's the case. But let's just run with that. That would mean that Catty and that have control, because she was given control of the ESM. Like it was called upon by governance, but it had to be authorized by the wallet that was in place at that time. So that's an interest. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that's an interesting narrative. If you held that thought for a second, you would have to assume, okay, so Katie was in control. How did she know? How did she know? Like, if they haven't if Richard hasn't lost control, if Richard has lost control of the chain, that means Katie and that had access to it. So who's Katie and who is she involved with? But where it breaks down is she gave back control. Like, if you took control, you took your 200K, or whatever it was that she sent it down to. I think it was 200K, and you send it to Maria. That would indicate that Maria's in control of the chain. But Maria's only ever but Maria's still here and still building. It's like there's too many holes in the argument. Like, there's too many holes in the argument. But if you go for the narrative, which I subscribe to personally, is that Richard Hart is 100% still in control of the chain, because the proof is in the 5996. The proof is in the wallet. The Viet Dong, all of that. Like, the 4 wallets. So then people say, then it comes back to the repeg mechanism, right? Which is how it works, because the equation is you've got collateral and a redemption path and arbitrage. The same way the same way DAI worked effectively on MakerDAO. So the arbitrage bots don't create $1, right? They enforce $1 when the system takes it to $1. So it creates a credible way to redeem it, right? Or settle at $1. The same way MakerDAO was invented with DAI, right? Before they changed it and they rebranded.
Yeah, and to me, like, what's the motive? I feel like if you're Richard Hart and you can accumulate 30 billion PDI and then peg it, it's not like he could sell that and make $30 billion, but you don't even need to. If you've got all of these peg mechanisms, you just stake all of that PDI and all these protocols and earn, 2, 3, 4, 5% off of those balances. And you literally never have to sell a single PDI, and you're just making tons of interest off of it. That's really the motive that I feel like I see how it's going to work. That's kind of how I see it in my head.
Yeah. I mean, the Oracle deployment, dude, is you're kind of in a way, you're ahead of most on that, because that's kind of that's the prerequisite. That's the last kind of step before peg, because the signal to watch is the Oracle deployment transaction from 1967 or 5996. That's the final prerequisite, because the only thing left for that is the peg stability, which is the PSM. This is the whole like ESM thing. They're not. Everyone's talking about the ESM, but they're not talking about the PSM, which is the stability module. That's the big. That completely eliminates the ESM, is what I'm trying to say, because it bypasses everything. It's the arbitrage and it keeps it at $1. Yeah.
I mean, before that, you have to actually get it to $1, right? Like, I think just enabling all these protocols isn't going to, like you said, they're enforcing the peg. They're not actually pegging it.
Yeah,
right.
well, that's the thing. You answered your own question, because the Oracle, that's what the Oracle serves. So if the Oracle deployment transaction appears, that's the signal, right? That's the final signal before the PDI peg. Oracle deployment. So if nine, nine or anyone, because I haven't been in front of the computer for 4 days now, truly. So I'm having a bit of a break from it, from everything. But if 9 spots anything, he's going to talk about it on X, and if it has the words Oracle deployment in it, that's it. That's the last kind of bastion. If a transaction appears from the one, this is the thing. This is the most important thing. If a transaction appears from the 1967 and the 5996 wallet, which is connected to an Oracle, the jig is up, because that's the point to $1, and then the PSM deployment. So when you say about getting it to $1, you only need If you have complete control of the oracles on chain, you just set the price. That's the whole click the button and then it
But
appears as $1.
that sounds like very centralized, though. Like, isn't the point of the oracle to like show the price of the token, the actual price of the token on chain, not just a centralized entity saying this is the price?
Yeah, totally. But that's the whole centralization versus decentralization debate, because when people say that everything is centralized, they're not wrong, because pretty much everything is centralized.
Yeah, but
The
isn't
same
that
way.
what that's what we're trying to do different here, right? Is a actually fully decentralized stablecoin.
Well, that's the thing. The issue that you're going to come up. This is the debate, right? This is literally the crux of the debate, because when it comes to the OA wallets, where do you draw the line of centralization and decentralization? Because he's got like X amount of supply of pretty much every coin in the game, right? Basically, you and I and other people are relying on him not dumping his OA bags.
Yeah, so you feel like this is going to be no different, where I mean it won't be any different because he owns,
Yeah,
we're assuming he already owns 50+% of the PDAI supply, so I guess this is no different.
yeah, and you're not wrong, because you know ultimately, like, if you take the example of Amazon, for example, like, where Jeff Bezos having 51%, etc., etc., he could just tank it overnight, right? He could just sell all his stocks. Obviously, it upset a lot of shareholders. Elon Musk could do the same. To some level, there's always going to be some centralization. E Foundation pretty much control what they do and what they change. Vitalik has so much input. Whether he has more input than he's letting on, that's a whole nother conversation. But the point is, how much centralization are people willing to tolerate? Do you know what I mean? Because you can be in the freest country in the world, but you're still going to have authorities, and else it's going to be chaos. You do need some level of order, some level of centralization. That's why a lot of people get upset and disgruntled at their own government, because they know that they ultimately have control. But when they abuse that control, nobody likes them. But when they keep the streets safe and everything's all good, they like centralization. So, but again, it's an interpretation. This is why I was saying there's, like, it's a debate, and that's the crux of the debate. And there's no right or wrong answer. It just depends on how much you're willing to appetize the centralization. Because I would argue that if a super ethical man runs a chain and he believes in decentralization, and he knows that the mechanics of a chain requires him to have some centralization level in order to achieve decentralization. And I know that sounds, kind of like paradoxical, because it is paradoxical. Like, you can't have freedom without control, right? They're always on the end of each. It's like it's two sides of the same coin. So really it comes back to how much is he willing to be in control. Obviously, ultimately, a PDAI, a pegged stablecoin, a decentralized stablecoin using Oracle tech as an example. If it requires centralization to achieve decentralization, and then he relinquishes control, then you could make an argument that it wasn't centralized, but it is now. So it depends on what side of like, how far we are into the story. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how I think it's going to go. I think he'll peg PDAI, and then he'll relinquish control, because he already has control of those wallets. So it's kind of like, lose the keys, done. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll keep some centralization, and that's okay. But what I'm saying is, if Richard has a 51% share in a stock that I'm invested in, I don't really care if the founder sticks around. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's got their own. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's got their own viewpoint on centralization and decentralization. But I think it's the reason I say it's worth a debate is because it's not black and white. There is a lot of grey. So yeah, oracles are centralized. Unfortunately, they are, to a certain degree, they are centralized, and they do keep the peg. They do keep here's the thing, right? You can be on the most decentralized network. Here's the truth. Pulse Chain is the most the as far as I know. If anyone knows any different, please like let us know. But as far as I know, Pulse Chain is the most decentralized network on blockchain in all of crypto, because we have like 50,000 plus validators that are all around the world, and we're completely decentralized. Where the centralization comes in, he and Richard and his team have already taken control of that. So he's already decentralized, so to speak, the centralized points, the failure points, the broken legs on the table. He's already taken control of them. So the argument is, what's he going to do with it? And that's really where the PDI narrative came, I guess, because um, the thing about the decentralized stablecoin is, if it's backed by, you do need a decentralized stablecoin in order for the chain to survive. Like, it has to exist in order for us to survive, because without a decentralized stablecoin, which again, like, there's levels to the game, because people say USDC, USDT. What was Binance is one which was very centralized. Your I forget the name of it now. It was the BUSD. Yeah, BUSD. Like, that was obviously gone now, but that was quite centralized. They're all centralized at different levels, is what I'm trying to say. Like, if even DAI was backed, I think, by 15% was USDC, something like that. We still have USDC and USDT on Pulse Chain, and those keys haven't been invalidated, fortunately. But it's risky having them. But the question is, would you be willing to have the basically trust the PDI, the pegged DAI, because we still have DAI, but it will be PDI. It'll be like Pulse Chain's DAI, because there's still DAI on Ethereum, right? Which again is decentralized, but they're phasing it out. Like, they're phasing it out one by one. So that's not safe either. So yeah, we do need a decentralized stable coin. And if that again, it's just a debate. I'm not right. I'm not saying anyone's right or anyone's wrong. I'm just saying that it's food for thought, because there's always a level of, if he has to centralize the network in some aspects, purely from a PDI perspective, like a stable coin perspective, in order to get the oracles to point to $1, back it with his own collateral, and then it remains the self-reinforcing peg, and then he gives up control, relinquishes that. However way you can do it, you could do a 000X or whatever, which probably makes sense, actually, because if you think about it, what does Richard do after the stable coin? What does Richard's teams do after we've already eliminated, like, we've already become $1, and then we're at that self-reinforcing flywheel? It makes sense to relinquish control. Like, whether that's getting rid of, you know what I'm saying?
If relinquishing control in the previous to that, and I agree with everything you're saying, by the way. There is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a study of intentions. Okay, so, like, for example, we have been. I know you watch a lot of RH material. I'm sure many others listening have and continue to. You can study someone's intentions. So I don't really see many videos from top execs at banks telling you how great it is to give them your savings and lock it up for 5 years for a small return. I don't see many people going toe to toe with doubters of banks. But I do see Richard Hart going toe to toe with people for a very, very long time and winning hard. There is, again, the stronger argument about investing in people. And if it does, as you say, take a little bit of centralization, or just believing in somebody who would appear to believe very strongly in the fundamentals we all share in and believe in, and that's surely the way to go. You can call it centralization, but it's just one way of putting it. In the short term, pre-relinquishing control, you're investing in a person who has a reputation you can look up and study for yourself. I would take that any day of the week over a traditional centralized operator or service or person.
Yeah, I don't want to like argue what you're saying. I guess this is more of a question, but like, isn't something like Chainlink decentralized? Like, is there really no way to have a truly decentralized Oracle?
I think to some degree there isn't. I mean, how far do we want to take it to the point that something is completely decentralized? I think there has to be some level of control for the better. Pegger actually made a good example about policing. I mean, a lot of people complain about it. You would think a lot of people complain about it from what we read and see. But when you want them, you need them, you're very glad of it. And perhaps that lends well to that argument that there needs to be some level of control. It's just a case of whether or not the investor or the interested party believes that that level of control is for the better and based on their history to date.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't invested in PulseChain. I haven't invested in DAI. I invested in a person. That is the root. That is the foundation of my being here. I'm not. I didn't invest in a logo. I didn't invest in. I'm not saying anyone here has. I'm just throwing out real rough examples of why people choose to belong in certain places. But like, we have a great group. I think our group is fascinating, and it tells a very strong story of people with similar beliefs and hopes and dreams and backgrounds, I think, as well. And I do like the fundamentals of PulseChain, and I like DAI, obviously. But I have invested in a person because I study the behaviors and I listen to what they have to say. And any day of the week, I back someone who thought, I know, the SEC are after me. A lot of people would just fold. I just cannot imagine the pressure of that being visited upon him for the best part of two and a bit years, courtside. But he chose to not settle or take the easy door. He chose to go through the wall, and he did it. Like, that person gets my vote. So it just lends well to my having some trust in somebody. And that's, if that person is visiting a little bit of centralized power for the better, then they get my vote.
You
Yeah,
know,
for me, like it.
I was going to say, I think the most decentralized Oracle you could have would be a contract that points to to a liquidity pool, like a burnt liquidity pool, because then you couldn't pull all of the liquidity. So if like for instance, I think Pulse Chain, like I've tried to you could see the price of like USDC and USDT bridged in from Ethereum, and those prices fluctuate. But I think Pulse Chain always prices DAI from Ethereum at $1. And so if you had a eDAI PDAI pair that was burnt and you had a contract you know, pointing to that pair at the ratio of it, I think that would be the best way to have the most decentralized Oracle. I even think Richard Hart has said Uniswap is the Oracle. the pricing between pairs, like that's the Oracle price, if I'm not mistaken.
I feel like you're oversimplifying it because there are like flash loan attacks and there are ways to manipulate Uniswap in a single block. I mean, there's time weighted average pricing, so you can avoid some of that. But for me, like arguing centralized versus decentralized oracles, I don't really care so much. To me, that doesn't really matter with the narrative of PDI pegging. I was just trying to like, I guess initially just talk about like an oracle. Like I was just trying to get to steps to a peg, like what's left on the table that needs done, and where are we at to get there.
You make a good point too, dude, about fetch on this side, because I don't know why. I find it peculiar that when that came into being, and there was a lot of excitement around it, but whoever was behind it couldn't foresee the nature of PulseChain and how what's the word, volatile, how volatile PulseChain is, but particularly was. I think maybe a year and a half ago, it was very volatile. And people were able to, or some people were able to exploit that. And these flash loan attacks were a part of it. I was surprised that whoever was behind Fetch Oracle didn't foresee that, and but only in post. And I think they closed that window down to like by 50% to like 15 minutes. No, beg your pardon, what am I saying? 15 minutes, 15 seconds or something. But it could be exploited. I haven't seen anything since that tells me all of that is resolved. I just feel like it's behind closed doors and it's off limits to you and I. And that's my layman's take on it.
There was a question earlier about there is no direct evidence of OA bags buying PDI. Is that correct? We're definitely just speculating on that.
Yeah, I've only ever speculated on that. I haven't seen anything. I've read people talking about different connections, but I've never actually seen. I haven't yet seen hard evidence to demonstrate it. Albeit, I think Tenor was asking earlier about data, cohort data for wallets that arrive in, like new wallets, and are they in any way connected to the OA addresses? Like I can supply anybody with that data if they want to look through it for themselves. Like some people are very, very good at chain analysis. I mean, that can be made available. So, but for me, it's speculation about the OA addresses.
Yeah, it's a great question. So many great points. And dude, I've just put that question to 9 because that really gave me some food for thought then, because ultimately I mean, I was speculating. I already had some level of basis on the speculation, and I know obviously, like you said, you're not really too fussed about the Oracle thing. But your question, the discussion did trigger a very important question, which is very, very valuable, because I've just asked 99 about it, because I think this ultimately is one of the missing pieces, and it's been a discussion on Pulse Chain for some time, because as you said, Osprey, it's a very curious. I'm very curious about that, the whole chain link Oracle and the Teller Oracle conversation. because there is a narrative, and it is only a narrative, and it is only a reach at this point, and this is a very big reach. But there is an argument that if an oracle, there is an argument that the oracles have not really been working fully and operationally or accurately on Pulse Chain for some time. And then the argument, and then consequently, has the ecosystem been purposefully suppressed? There is an argument for that. There is a narrative for that. It is a reach. It is a huge reach. But the argument is, do we have a working oracle? Because that is a discussion that kind of needs to be made. And really that kind of, my point is, I've put the question forward to 9 because the only thing that I can seem to see of the because it is needed in terms of the pegging. The only real path that I can see is the TWAP Oracle upgrade, which is, and I've just put it in the chat because the sequence would be, you would seed your deep liquidity and you'd burn the LP, and then you would use TWAP as the price feed. So the ratio, you can't control the ratio, but you can control the burning of the LP. So it's a very complex question, and it's a very big question, and I don't think anybody's necessarily asked it at this point. Or if they have asked it, it's kind of been a, well, yeah, we'll worry about that later kind of thing. Whereas the argument to be made now is, if the infrastructure is lining up, which we can see it is across, the different elements of PDAI, the argument is the intuitive next step is to have the correct price feed and the oracle to deliver. So then if that's the case, I presume the TWAP is the best technology that we have in terms of it being the most decentralized oracle equipment that we tech that we have, because there is a trilemma on the oracles too, right? And some stable coins learned the hard way when they depegged. So yeah, it's just a lot of food for thought. All I'm saying is it's very interesting. There's a lot of it kind of births a lot more questions, and the best person to talk to about that is probably 9. So that's why I asked him. So yeah, I appreciate the chat, boys and girls, because it's made me think about the next step, which is the Oracle and then the PSM. I can't really see beyond that.
Pegger, to your point, like what the Oracle would be, EDAI has never fluctuated on Pulse Chain. It's just been a consistent dollar, not one percentage move up or down. So like, what if just EDAI? What if the chain is the Oracle? Like that's what it always reads. EDAI is $1. If you look up USDT from Ethereum, or and then you look up the EDAI pair, and then you invert the pair to look at what the price of EDAI is, it's just $1. It's always $1, right? So if anything could just be priced against EDAI, then that would be the Oracle. Like I think that would probably be the best way to have an Oracle, because like the chain prices EDAI at $1 no matter what. So maybe the best question would be like, what's the best way to get what's the best way to price it against something like a TWAP, or like if there's something better. But I think the protocol for or however you would say it, but I think EDAI and Pulse Chain, the chain itself, is probably would be the Oracle.
Yeah, that would just make it dependent on EDAI, and which is going to make it more centralized in that scenario. I guess for me also, the biggest, a more important question is how does this relate to the Clarity Act? Because I think we all agree that nothing is going to happen until that gets pushed through to make sure that legally PDAI is, following the rules. And, does a centralized Oracle fall under does that make it, fall in or out of some regulatory,
Yeah.
bill that the Clarity Act is going to have.
Yeah, that's that's very true, because really it all comes back to the Clarity Act in that sense, because we do need the actual literal clarity on what we can and can't do across DeFi, because it's always easier to swim with the tide as opposed to swim against it. And also, if we don't, with the finalization of the clarity, it's going to give Richard clarity on what he can and can't do in terms of like where he can operate, because he will be trying to look out for the gray. He wants to live in the gray, right? How much time can I, and where we come up against regulatory hurdles and barriers, we can pivot, because it might be that the shooting yourself in the foot is actually the I keep using the word clarity. I'm overusing it, but it is just the literal clarity of what we can and cannot do, and that's why they named it that, because they want a clear framework for digital assets across the board. And it's not just about, mostly it's stable coins, believe it or not. It is actually mostly stable coins. The biggest market share for crypto is ultimately stable coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stable coins. That's it. Top three. And the Americans know that, and they want to regulate it, because they want to introduce their own projects and their own guidelines, and they want to be at the front of the industry, and they want to lead the way, and they want to innovate and get ahead of everyone else. So generally, not everyone, obviously, and that's why they're voting on it. It goes to the Senate. But yeah, we do need that to pass, and then once we have that passed, then Richard can go through it like he does with everything that he does. He becomes a student of the technology that's at hand, the law, and I'm sure he's had a lot of experience with the law, with the SEC, and having a couple of a team of very very good Emmanuel Quinn lawyers on his side, where he can look at it and go, okay, well, take a look at this. What can we do? Where can we operate? And also, what technology is currently being built on? Because you've got to remember, crypto isn't static, right? Crypto is constantly innovating and constantly changing. So for all we know, Richard might be developing an Oracle tech that he wants to deploy onto the Pulse chain that's never been done before. Like, this is the beautiful thing about it. Because he has control of the OA, he can, it might be that he needs, it's just plug and play, right? He can plug in this new Oracle tech, which is probably operating in the grey areas of the Clarity Act that's about to be passed, but he's waiting for that to pass so that he can actually deploy the tech to plug it in, and then boom, switch on. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
in fairness, he did say that. He said, well, to paraphrase, I kind of got the quote right, but I got a few tricks up my sleeve.
yeah. And I think I watched something the other day. I need to go back through it. Again, because every time I learn it, I learn new words, I learn new information, I've learned about quantum physics and astro projection and all sorts of weird and wonderful things just watching his videos. But I need to watch it again. And obviously I'll go down these rabbit holes. Like, I've suddenly started learning about quantum physics since I listened to Richard Hart, which I never thought I'd ever do. But I need to re-watch, because he talks about the interview you're talking about, Osprey, with the few tricks up my sleeve with Wendy O. And then there's another one where he talks about oracles, and he kind of bashes oracles. And I can't find the exact clip. I do need to go through it. Hexsearch.io, by the way, guys, if anyone, that's the one that I use a lot. So if you ever want a specific video for Richard Hart, just go on hexsearch.io and type in the thing that's been discussed. And it's pretty good. I'd say it's 95% of accurate. And it'll just populate all the videos that Richard Hart's ever discussed on that specific subject. So if you type in I might type in oracles on hexsearch.io and deep dive it a little bit and see if we can find what else he says, because I'm pretty sure there is one video where he's bashing oracles a lot, but you can almost like see it in his eyes that he's thinking about solutions. I can't remember the exact one. I swear, I'm pretty sure. I need to find the exact. I'll find it and I'll find a snippet and I'll try and put it in the chat, because I swear there's like a pause. You've probably seen it, Osprey. I'm sure a few of the other guys have seen it. You know, when he has this moment where he's just sort of pausing and he's thinking through his ideas. It's very rare. It's very rare to see him do it, because usually he's always got these he's got a lot of these ideas thought through. Like he's already got them. Like he can like shoot from the waist. But every now and then it'll come through and he'll go, could we not? Maybe he's like sort of tilting his head. Could we do it that way? And then I'm sure it was the Oracle conversation, but I'll have to look back,
It rings a
which would
bell.
which would make it even more interesting if that's the final thing. Like imagine that
Yeah.
Clarity pegs, release of the Oracle, ZK wallet, everything's all operational. Boom, God candle, Instapeg, takeover. It sounds so simple, but it's come down to it. It's really come down to it. I mean, this is what we're speculating on, right? And it's also a
Yep.
case of when, right? Not necessarily if. 99 said when you handle the if, you don't have to worry about the when.
Yeah, it's a perfect little phrase. That I'm very happy. I don't worry about when.
Yep. But yeah, definitely Clarity Act is a big one. It's definitely a big one, because the issue with the Clarity Act is if it doesn't get passed, touch wood, if it doesn't get passed, we're gonna have an issue, because that's going to kick the can down the road, and that's going to be a bit of a wait. But it does look good, and there's a lot of people. There's more people that want this thing to pass than there are people going up against it. So far so good, and we've overcome a few obstacles along the way, as in general, because it went from senator, it went to Tim Scott, it went to this person. You had Cynthia Lummis has been pushing it very hard, like really hard, and it is kind of the last kind of major thing. Put it this way, and this is just my opinion, but if we don't get the Clarity Act, not only do we not really get the PDI thing necessarily, like it's not going to getting the Clarity Act is only going to expedite the PDI roadmap. It's not going to slow it down, but there's a risk that it will be slowed down if we don't get it. How much of that risk, if what we think is true? One thing is for sure, we don't get a bull market if we don't get the Clarity Act this year. So because here's the question: the only people left to buy are the institutions, and if the institutions can't get in, there's no $800 billion coming through on the conservative side. So the question is, I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm saying that if I'm wrong, please tell me where I'm wrong, because if you don't have, because where is retail aren't in, and unless you've got not VCs, unless you've got institutions, you've got your pension providers, you've got your banks, you've got your just financial whales, big whales. Unless they're buying and they're deploying the 800 billion, it's between 800 billion, 1.1 trillion over the 6 to 12 months from the Clarity Act passing. If they're not buying, retail aren't coming in, because what retail? Where are retail? I mean, you try and onboard someone, you try and tell someone that crypto's interested. Nobody cares. No one's here. The only people left are the hardcore crypto guys like us. You know what I mean? We're still retail, but like, in terms of compared to the whales and stuff like that. So the question is, where's the money coming from? Because Walsh doesn't look like he's going to be printing. So if he doesn't print and the whales don't come, who's the next guy? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not trying to sound doomer, because I'm still positive about the Clarity Act, but it's something to consider. It just means that our timeline extends and we get more time to accumulate. But ideally, we get the Clarity Act. That's what we want, and it will trigger a bull run. Make no mistake on that, because this whole sell the news thing, they don't. People have misunderstood that. They don't understand what they're talking about. It's not a
Yeah.
sell the news event. It's here comes the money.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm trying to find the. I think it was on the last VC we were talking about the likelihood of Clarity Act going through. 80%, according to a. Oh, what's the university? It's like it's a
Well, poly market. Is it poly market?
no. There's a bipartisan assessment. They can pull. It's nice and fair and reasonable, and it was a take on bills that have made it into law that reached the Senate floor, and there is the percentage rate. Anyway, it showed the percentage rate of success, and it's like looking like 80%. But then you've got 80% of bills made to the Senate floor X amount of time. I think it was like 12 years have all successfully made it into law. And then of course you have, like you say, you have poly market, which gives in the moment likelihoods. I'm absolutely sure I posted that last week, and it was a screenshot of the this university's assessment, and I find it very positive. Because a lot of people ask that, will it or won't it? And
Yeah.
when something makes it this far with such, and it really does have bipartisan support, and the world is fucking crying out for it.
Yeah.
In my view. So I feel like it's absolutely going to happen.
Well, that's it. I mean, here's another reality of the situation. For it to get to Senate at this point and pass, for it to actually pass, really, majority of the negotiation is happening between now and June 2nd.
Yeah.
So, despite the fact that they're all on leave officially, because that's what they're on leave, because obviously senators don't like to work a lot during the year.
Yeah.
They just like to not work. You got Trump flying, missing his son's wedding for whatever reason, and you got the senators like, "No, I'll just take 3 weeks off. Forget it." But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion. But one thing what I'm trying to say is, even though they are on leave, their phones are on, right? They're still negotiating. They all have things that they want, right? Whether it's the ethics agreement, or whether it's the housing, or whether it's the funding of this or the funding of that, they all have levers that they can pull, because that's politics, right? Everybody's got something they want, and they're in it for themselves and their own legacy, and that's fine. That's fair enough. Everybody's got their own. That's just part of being human, right? You have things that you want. So they're going to pull those levers and want to negotiate those things. So the negotiation is happening between now and the 2nd of June. So, to your point, Osprey, they're by the time they get to the Senate, you're already going to have 80% or so of people already in agreement with what you're saying. Like you're already going to have majority of people. To be honest, it's kind of ironing out the final details. For it to get to Senate, you've already. Yeah, basically, it's a mad rush between now and the June 2nd, because nobody wants to get to the Senate and not come to a deal. No one, neither Democrats nor Republicans, because they don't want to have wasted all their time. They don't want all of the issues to have not been ironed out, because they all want to make money. None of this, even if the ethics, there's going to be a granddad rights thing that exists. So anybody who's bought crypto up until this point, who's a senator, you're good, you're fine, but no buying after this date. So everybody who's already got a piece of got some money in the deal, as in they've got money in crypto, then they want it to win. They're just as invested as we are. Like, make no mistake in thinking that senators don't have bags. Bro, I mean, look at that. Look at that recent lady who came out, and it was just like she was like the poster child of buying bags as a senator. Like, she's just like grinning away like she was in a school photo. So yeah, they all want it to come to pass, you know. So it's funny, liberal. When it comes to money, Democrats and Republicans come together.
Strange, that, isn't it?
Strange.
I found the source. It was the Miller Center. So they do sort of bipartisan studies for bipartisan use. And right, it was more than 80% of laws enacted since 2012 passed Congress with majorities from both parties voting yes. I also had another little snippet. One congressional analysis found that roughly 70% of bills signed into law had bipartisan co-sponsors. Only a tiny fraction of bills introduced became law, overall 2.5%. So, yeah, 80%. More than 80% of laws enacted since 2012 passed Congress with majorities from both parties voting yes. That sounds
Wow.
very, very positive, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this
'cause
is
you
serious
just,
legislation.
I mean, 70%. It's like that's what that's what I was trying to say previously. Based on what I've researched, the biggest hurdle is behind us. The committee meeting was the biggest hurdle. It is just a case of everyone's got a price now. And here's the thing: they said it in the committee. Like, we had 3 Democrats that were willing to come across the aisle. They all said it openly. If we can handle the ethics issue, if we can handle this and handle that, I'll come across. So it's not like a case of like, oh, it's impossible. We got 14 for, I think it was 14 for 9 or 13 for 9, but it was basically 14 for 9 because one of them was saying it's just the ethics issue, and I'm across the aisle. So we're already in good stead. 20 total 20 seats. I think it's 20 seats that they need for full pass. But yeah, it's just going to be that's going to be negotiated on now. And I'll bring up the X site that I follow. I follow I think it's Eleanor. Eleanor, I'm going to find out her details and post it in the chat. But if you follow her on X, she gives all the best updates for clarity. Obviously, anything that comes through, that's like super bullish or a real advancement in either direction. But I see it all advancing in a bullish direction. I'm going to post about and put on X anyway. But I'll get Eleanor's. Let me just see if I can find her name actually. But she's a great reporter. She's a very, very unbiased sort of reporter. She's very kind of in the middle and just reports on the facts and says, like, how's the Clarity Act progressing? Is it, are we actually going to get this thing over the line or not? And that's basically her focus. And she talks about all the obstacles that we face on a generally every other day-to-day basis. But it's been a bit quiet between now and June 2nd. The odds remain 61%, between 61 and 63%, depending on your source of passing. So, it's a much higher than it was in February, which was like 21% or something.
Like you say, doors are closed now. Now they're having the real discussions. That's why those odds are staying where they are for now. Coming up June, where are we now? June, July. So yeah, I feel like there's just going to be money sloshing around PulseChain for quite a while. Yeah, just people swapping in and out, trying to make little gains here and there, but it's just sloshing about the pot. Come July and August, my goodness me. Like, I'm super glad we're here and now. I think it's an absolute blessing.
Yeah, I mean, just sort of pinch. We're only going to pinch ourselves more and more as well as time goes on.
Yeah.
got to give credit to Liberty Swap too. They tried their best with Fireblocks for us, but no comeback from Fireblocks whatsoever. That is a dead duck. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why, because they have like 150 customers on there for different chains and whatnot, and they just don't want to engage. I know I keep on about it, but I just find it a bit peculiar.
Yeah, it's wild. I think a lot of people are just like, I don't know why. It's just cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
You know, they see Richard Hart beat the SEC and they still think he's a scammer. I mean, I talked about it earlier, but it's just like, why? Why is there so much tribalism in the sense of like all these big people are just like, oh, have you heard about Richard Hart? Oh yeah, he's a scammer. Oh, don't just ignore it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's just like, just think for yourself. You know, I think this is why Richard got so angry at the Bitcoin maxis, because they're more interested in tribalism than they are in logic.
Yeah. And the thing is, here's the funny thing about this crypto business. There's money to be made in tribalism. But back to what you were saying a couple of hours ago about do you want to be right or do you want to make money? You know, that kind of way. Tribalism makes money, but it's not the type of money. I don't think it's the type of money you, I, and others are looking for. It's short-lived, and it's with a lot of effort. A lot of effort has gone into this chain being as sovereign as it is on part of people that have, well, one guy lost his life, right? This Nikolai guy.
Yeah.
I can neither prove nor disprove was the guy, something very bad happened to him, but obviously it was not good. And the SEC tried to destroy the guy who founded this chain by reputation, and kind of cripple his defenses, you know, his rights. So I think people enjoy to be people have seen that you can make money without being right. You can commodify it very quickly with the likes of X and Telegram. You can drum up a lot of money very, very quickly out of a pool of people. And boy, oh boy, do they hate to be wrong.
Yeah.
You're
I mean,
yeah. You know what I mean. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I understand this sort of conserve your energy and versus kind of acquire new energy. You know, I understand that. Like, if you've got economic energy, if you're the big fish in the small pond, or the big fish in the big pond, you know, whatever scenario you want to look at, you're the big guy. You want to protect what you've got. I totally understand that. Like, if you're up and coming, you're enterprising and you're aggressive in capital markets, you're more likely to take risk, you're more risk kind of minded, you're more ambitious, all that kind of stuff. And that's where and it's interesting how personality types attract similar personality types, because a lot of Richard Hart's personality types is a lot of personality and demeanor is a lot of the reason why a lot of us are here today, because we exhibit a lot of those traits. You know, we want to, whether that's aggressive in nature or aggressive in expansion, like whether you want to be, you know, because you do have the two types. These are the two classic archetypes of investors, and I'm not talking about bearish and bullish. I'm talking about enterprising and like defensive investors. And Warren Buffett and that have been talking about it for as long as modern finance has existed. And it's the idea that are you trying to build something new, or are you trying to protect what you already have? So I do understand a lot of these guys, the Bitcoin maxis and all that, who have made the bag. And you got a Bitcoin maxi who sat on $1.2 million, and he's thinking, I'm sweet, I got my car's paid off, my house is paid off, my wife's good, my kids are good, I'm good where I am. And then they minimize their risk. Like they're at 1.2 million, they think, I've got enough money, I'm just going to put it in Bitcoin. Maybe they were in altcoins, or they were in projects, or they were trading their time for services, or they got paid in Ethereum, whatever they got, whatever their story is, they got to a point where they became a Bitcoin maxi. They didn't, that's not obviously what they identify as. They just go, oh, I just got a bit of Bitcoin, it's not a big deal. But they've become Bitcoin maxis because they don't realize that they're in the, like, I understand how the status quo is, oh, we're all in Bitcoin, let's all stay in Bitcoin. Why would I go into anything else? Michael Saylor is the perfect archetype for the Bitcoin maxis because he is a Bitcoin maxi. Like, he is like, why would I do that? Why would I just buy Bitcoin? Like, refinance your house, buy Bitcoin. Like, get a second job, buy Bitcoin. Borrow off your family, buy Bitcoin. We've all seen the meme, and the point is, I understand it because you've already made the money. Like, you're already in the castle. But for the people that haven't made the money yet, you have to go into the more speculative assets. Like, you have to try the pulse chains and the hexes and the PDAIs in order to accumulate. You have to speculate to accumulate. But once you've accumulated, nobody really talks about that side of it, where it's like you then just say no, 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 no to everything. But when it borders on like ignorance, that's when you're in trouble. And the problem is, a lot of people in the market are ignorant of Richard Hart because they didn't like him from Bitcoin days. I mean, there's a whole plethora of Bitcoin maxis who hate Richard only because he likes Ethereum, because he was Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin for so many years that then he flipped on what they consider flipped on them. But actually, he just updated his worldview and realized that, you couldn't build smart contracts on Bitcoin. So why would you stay with Bitcoin when Ethereum is the superior tech? And he made this very interesting point in one of his early streams, where he talked about there was Vitalik only made Ethereum because they wouldn't allow you to build on Bitcoin. And that wasn't an architectural issue. That was a voter issue. That was a not the validators, but the miners. So they decided, no, we don't want to build smart contracts. We just want to keep our pet rock. And then as a result, Ethereum, you couldn't build smart contracts on it. So Vitalik, in response to the market at the time, created Ethereum. Richard Hart built Hex and put it on Ethereum, but he said in an interview, I wanted to put it on Bitcoin, but Bitcoin didn't have smart contracts. So I pivoted to Ethereum. That's why he gave Hex a free airdrop to Bitcoin holders, not Ethereum holders, because he's always been a Bitcoin guy, but he pivoted to Ethereum because of the Bitcoin maxi mindset, which is, you can't sit with us, we're not changing anything. And then he started shitting on Bitcoin because he saw the truth in the superior tech, which is Ethereum, and they hated that. So there's a whole thing around Richard Hart and the original Bitcoin guys, and he's like if you went to the other side of the internet and you went to Bitcoin, like the other side of crypto, should I say, because you can't get more centralized than Bitcoin, right? Satoshi is like the number one crypto in the world. It's like on the other edge, the other side of the rankings, shall we say. If you go in there and you start talking about Richard Hart, they will give you a completely different version to what we know. But it's all ignorant, by the way. And it's just ignorant.
It is. Yeah, it absolutely is.
So yeah, it's tribalism. It's the iPhone versus Samsung conversation. You're never going to get away from it.
Yeah. Totally different subject. So I think we're on VC8. and 2 more will be on 10. And I was thinking, with our getting closer to the political breakthrough of the Clarity Act, we could get someone who's pretty seasoned in sort of punditry for I don't know, like I was thinking of George News, the George News guy, whoever's behind that account on X, like they
Yeah.
write probably, it's like really good. I think they'd be able to ask some cool questions around Clarity Act and their take on crypto moving forward. And I know like the guy has his own coin, right? And I could have a chat to him about that. Said we're not going to do any of that stuff. It's not a shill place. But
Yeah.
I really do rather admire his political take. He's a great writer, and he's been around a long time. And I know he has a bag of dye as well. So
Interesting.
I think it could be cool to get him on. And unless you have any other, like, if anyone has any other ideas of who we could manage to persuade to come on and help educate us all a little bit more about something in particular. Like, I think sovereignty wise, I think we've all educated ourselves and each other rather well, but the political side of things is quite interesting. And as is, I think there's another conversation to be had. You touched on it the other week about retaining wealth and being smart. I wonder, is there anyone out there that would like to talk to us more about their experience of having a very big change of pace in life, the problems they came up against and how they managed it? Like I know a person, but he's not available. He's the guy that actually got me into crypto, but he lives on a boat. he's hard to get a hold of. I think
I think it'd be great.
it'd be good to have something special for number 10, Never mind all the giveaways and all that crap. It's like that's not what we want to be doing. We want to be learning and strengthening our arsenal of information, that there's more value in that than a few thousand DAI here and there, it's I think that could be useful. So have a think about that one, and anyone else listening back or listening live.
Yeah,
I'm
George
sure
George
I'm
News
sure
sounds great.
yeah,
I mean, my only request, and it's not really, he's not necessarily he is educational, but obviously, Somi. So like, I would love it if Somi came on 1 week. That would be great. I think he'd bring a really great energy. I think he's up to it. I think it's just aligning the schedule really. And he's quite, I think he's got so much going on that I think he likes to be a bit spontaneous. Like I noticed that his only real first live streams was like when the whole Catty thing happened and everyone was talking about it. So he just hopped on a few different YouTube channels to weigh in. But I think that was more putting out fires as well, because like he had a lot of people coming at him, I think, because of PDI, which was interesting. So I think part of that was him putting out fires. But I know I don't know. I just think it would be great if he did come on to one of these, just to, obviously we understand a lot of what he says, but you always learn something new from him. I think a lot of it's from his trading experience as well, working on a trading floor before crypto. And a lot of these ideas of like asymmetric upside and, taking risk management, and just looking at the macro a little bit. And yeah, I just think he's my only, I'd say George News and Somi, those are my only two real people that I think would be like super fun to have, just to mix it up a bit as well. It's always great when new people get stuck in.
Yeah. I think we could get Somi nearer clarity because he could I mean, obviously he's on a different time. He's on a different time zone. I'm not sure if the time zone is favorable to him right now. You know, that 1 p.m. UTC start time. Maybe we could, if he needed the time a little different to suit him, but at the same time he could make use of the VC in a way that's positive to him. Maybe we can work something out with him that benefits his time. Because like you say, he is very, very busy. It's clear he's busy every day. It's not easy to create content at all and present yourself extremely well for viewers with all your data in one place. And I mean, it's serious achievement, you know. He does all his graphics and everything. Do you know what I mean? Those things, they're not easy. You have to have a workflow to do all that stuff, but he gets some news and he puts something together so flawlessly, you know. All the graphics and the presentation is just excellent. So maybe we could help him by working with him on his schedule, because he clearly does an awful lot for DAI as well. An awful lot.
For sure. I mean, also it could also be like a recording or something if he wants to put it on, if he wants for content, or I'm not sure. I mean, I don't mind either way. I'm just thinking for him, like, you know, because he probably thinks, oh, if I take an hour out of my content creation or something, I'm not sure. I don't know what his schedule's like, you know.
Or we skip the VC and just do a PDI Power Hour on Sami's channel, like a live thing, you know, because
Up for that.
that would suit him, because then it taps straight into his reach, and that's good for everybody to learn.
True. Yeah, we just hop on and do the guest thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Otherwise,
I'm
it's
sure.
just like
Yeah.
his yeah, I just respect his shtick and his reach and his time. You know, it's like it's harder to get some people. Maybe George News, it's hard to get him as well, but we'll find out.
100%. Yeah, I think that'll be good. I think George and Somi, I think that's probably the way to go. I mean, a lot of these, again, a lot of the thing with the outreach is it's like you almost need to get the win. You know, we're going to be limited in terms of people that we can get on anyway, because of sentiment, but also because of sentiment and stigma against PulseChain. Is obviously going to be a huge obstacle always, because we're always going to come up against, you know, you reach out to people, people just aren't going to answer the door. Do you know what I mean? They're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
But it's like it's so fair weather. Like crypto is so fickle in that sense, you know, because people who, you know, would never speak to you will suddenly be like DMing you when we're 10x higher or 100x higher.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. I mean, it's just fickle. It's just it's a good thing and a bad thing, because it means that people are willing to change their minds very quickly, which is great for great if you're in the ecosystem ahead of everyone else, and you know you need someone to sell to. It's just the way the game works. But then on the other side, on the flip side, you know, it also means that you're going to be suppressed for a long period of time until you've got some external factors that swing in your favor, like the macro, the Clarity Act, Richard coming back and pegging PDI, or not say coming back, he's always here, but coming back and buying, shall we say, and by coming back I mean flexing on this live stream when we're 100x higher, and he's saying, I told you all, guys, I told you so, you know. But you know, the buying of his own coins, or not even him, you know, Ethereum whales coming across, whether you got God whale buying, whether you believe he's God whale or not, like these different entities are buying up the chain, you know, and it's a combination effect really. It's like a compound effect. It's not one event, it's a number of events. So all we can do is just continue to accumulate and stay patient and keep ourselves occupied and keep running these great VCs, isn't it, Osprey? Just doing that together.
You bet. We're doing a very good job.
And getting those.
I think it's wonderful. Like I'm a bit I'm a bit older, but I'm 47 here, going on, I'll be 48 this year. But I still get a kick out of go on the VC, and then there's Tenor. I think, well, I assume he's in Australia. I just find that amazing that we can do all this with our phones in 2026 and just speak live to someone all that way away about something we all have in common or a train of thought we're all trying to pursue. It's just fascinating. The VC is like a really, really cool feature in general.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the kind of Wi-Fi on a plane thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's magic. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're just kind of, that's the most exciting thing about crypto and blockchain, right? Because you're kind of, we're at the forefront of technology, and you just don't even know what's going to happen next, because
Yeah.
you know, instant data and instant, like speaking to each other like we're all in the same room, and we're, like you say, we're literally all around the globe simultaneously talking and listening. People would have laughed at you if they said that that was possible 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Maybe not 20, maybe 30, but because obviously you had the early internet, right? But the thing is, the things that are being conceptualized today in the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to blow our minds from this. Because
Yeah,
who's to say, you know, you're having that, we mentioned astral projection earlier, like who's to say holographic images and all that isn't going to happen? You're going to be in a, you know, maybe you're putting your meta glasses on and you haven't got funny looking avatars anymore. Maybe we're just all stood in a room, we're having a digital conference room.
yeah, I can
You know?
see that coming. Yeah.
You know, so this is the sort of way it's going to be. Except the difference is we're all hopefully going to have a bag of money in our bank. Do you know what I mean? We're all going to be have a little bit of money and be like, this conference room is a lot more fun than the one we were on, you know, 24 months ago or whatever that looks like.
Where are we? Pega 1654. Yeah. That'll do it.
Yeah. What's that? 2 hours? 3?
We started at 1 and we're hitting 5.
Damn,
That's
they're getting
amazing.
longer.
That's good, you know.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
It is good. All right, I'll wind it up. If you're happy, and
I'm happy.
I'll post immediately. And I was a bit slow at the start. I was saying I had a Xiaomi phone, right? I had it less than just a few months, and it started dropping battery heavily at the weekend. I just could not figure it out. And I went to pick up the phone after an hour or so, and the whole phone was squashing at the back, and the battery the battery kind of inflates itself and starts leaking electrolytes or electrolyte gas. And I'm not the only person. It seems to happen to a few people who own those Xiaomi phones. So I had to replace the phone straight away, and I spent the weekend installing and getting everything right, passwords, etc. It was an absolute nightmare. But so the first little part of the VC was me trying to figure out how to activate my voice on the phone, because I hadn't set it up properly in the app yet. So sorry to anyone who has to listen to me going and ah for about a minute at the start. Till next week, and see you in chat. I'll post this now. I'll post the VC now for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, man. Take care.